All right, what's happening, folks? Welcome to Ichabod. We are doing a call-in show, so get your popcorn and your pop comments ready. Let me make sure we're live on the gram. Where we at? Okay, we should be live there now, and then Facebook should be live. I'll post the link there in a second. What's happening, folks? Welcome. My name is Be Good, the host of this channel here. This channel is Ichabod, taken from the verse in the Bible. I think it's Samuel, First or Second Samuel, where someone's told to name their child Ichabod because God's saying to the people, His glory is departing from them. Well, this is Ichabod because I'm saying the glory that I thought that existed in relation to the God of the Bible itself, the Christian message, the person of Jesus Christ, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the glory that was associated with all of that for me has faded, has departed. And somebody can say, no, Brady, you're the one who departed. You left. I would still be firmly in the Christian camp had I not seen behind the curtain and saw Yahweh's draws, as it were. Saw Yahweh back there behind the curtain in his draws. Like, don't look at me. I got a chance to peek behind the curtain and see what the Bible really had to offer, not what our English translations do to make it palatable and tolerable and maybe even believable and maybe even hiding some of the pitfalls and the flaws. I got a chance to get back behind. When I was a Christian, I had a song called Tapestry. You know, if you look at a woven work of art, on one side, it looks beautiful. But on the other side, you see what's called the tapestry. You see what the weaver was doing to get that pretty picture that you're seeing on the other side. On the back end, you see how tattered and how just the yarn or the string or whatever it is the threads are just everywhere. And you said, man, this is the tapestry on the other side that produced that pretty picture we like. Well, the point of my song was God's doing something so masterful in the earth. And it's so crazy because now when I think about it, I'm like, what the hell was the point of my song? Because I think what I was trying to say is, think about how crazy this is, y'all. Like, I was saying in that song that we look at the works of God from our vantage point and we can't see. Like, I don't even know what I thought I was saying. Like, damn, it's so crazy. I'm actually in my mind, stick with me, y'all, because this is actually going somewhere. In my mind, I thought I was saying that once we get to heaven, we'll see the tapestry. Like, maybe it doesn't make sense now, and it looks ugly and tattered and messed up now. But once we get to heaven, like Paul says, right, we see through a glass dimly now, but once we get there, we'll know as we're known. I was like, man, in the song, I was saying, once we get to heaven, we'll see the tapestry. We'll see like what he was actually weaving. But if you think about the message there, I really didn't communicate what I thought I was communicating, because if you follow the logic of that song, the tapestry doesn't show you how it makes sense. The tapestry is the side that looks messed up. The tapestry is I don't even know what's happening. You have to turn it on the other side to see, oh, this is what the artist was doing. But it's almost like if you pressed me to be logical in that song, what I was saying was, it looks like God's work in the earth looks like a tapestry on this side, and it's going to look like a tapestry on the other side. Like, it'll never make sense. Like, the tapestry is not the side that's going to make sense. Some version of it. So I guess to make what I was trying to say back then make sense, I would have had to have been saying This side is the tapestry. Like it don't make sense on this side, but when we go on the other side, it'll make sense. But I guess I said all of that to say I went to seminary where I thought it was going to make more sense. I thought, okay, the stuff that doesn't make sense to me now, the questions that I have now, whether it be about Genesis or whether it be about whatever, think of all the issues. What happens to people who never heard the gospel? Whatever questions you would ever have, I thought I would get in seminary, and it would stop looking like tapestry, and I'd start seeing more of the beauty. But no, it was the other way around. I got in seminary, and I was like, yo, it's even messier than I thought. Like, now I see why all the study Bibles have a million footnotes in them, because the text, the English translators and the translation committees, they try to make it look pretty for us, but they know if this person studies a bit more, if they go looking, they're going to find like how even though we prettied it up in English, it's a mess in the Hebrew. It's a mess in the Greek. So I'm going back behind the curtain and I'm looking like, yo, I thought I was going to get answers here. I came out with more questions, better questions, unanswerable questions, or maybe they weren't unanswerable, but as a Christian, I did not like the answers. And when I left seminary, I slammed the Bible shut and I said, I can't do this. And I challenged God to show up in the world because I can't see you in that book. I need to see you in your world because I can't see you in your word. That was my prayer. But anyway, I say all of that to say I'm here now because I want to know, why do you believe? If you believe the Bible, and maybe I could even change the title of this to why do you still believe? Like, why are you still a Christian? Either you've not run into the things that you need to run into that would make you say, I better rethink this. Or you run into them and some kind of way you've convinced yourself that whatever these hurdles are that make people like me disconnect and disbelieve, that make the people who are in my chat here, who are most of the people in the chat, they're former Christians. They've got a life and a legacy to show for their devotion to Jesus. And at some point they realize, oh my God, I was wrong. Oh my God, I was deceived. Oh my God, this is not true. And they did the only thing that an honest person can do. They lived in light of the reality that they stumbled on. This isn't true. But many of us were like you. We believe, but we encountered things that made us say, I can't keep doing this. But I want to know, why are you a Christian? Why are you a Christian? Why are you still a Christian? And if you don't mind, one of the things that I like doing for Christians is maybe stress testing your faith a little bit, like maybe running some things by you that might make you say, that's a good question. One of the things you'll hear when believers call in, every once in a while, they'll say, that's a good question. If that's the only purpose I serve in your world, is just maybe asking some good questions. Maybe it's not going to cause you to deconstruct or doubt or deconvert, but maybe you'll go get some better answers to the questions that I'm asking. I don't think there are better answers. I've heard many of them. I heard most of them. Very rarely do I hear something that makes me say, you know what, you should think about that a little bit more. But if I do, I think about it a little bit more. Haven't heard anything to date that made me say, maybe I shouldn't have left. But maybe you'll be the one. Maybe you'll be the one to convince me. But okay, I've talked enough. I need to greet some folks here. First and foremost, these people. Hey, all the Patreon supporters, all the people who've been rocking with Ichabod, and not just saying it, but even showing it. Like, hey, I just wanted to support. I just wanted to, hey, go get a cheesesteak on me or whatever it is. Thank you for all the Patreon supporters who support the channel. And if you say I would love to support, I just can't right now. Times is hard. We in this Trump economy. Trust me, I get it. Another way you can support is while you're here, just make sure you like the video, subscribe, hype the video. YouTube gives you the opportunity to hype videos. You hype the video, they'll show it to more people. Drop a comment, not just in the chat, but maybe come back by and drop a comment. All of that helps. Share this with somebody. All of that helps. If you can't support financially, just share it with somebody. You know what I mean? I hear this from people all the time. Paula G, it was like, your channel is criminally undersubscribed to. Hey, we'll get there if we're meant to get there. I don't know about teleology and all that, but anyway, shout out to all the Patreon supporters. Thank you for rocking with the channel, and everybody who's in the chat right now. If you're on Instagram, I didn't realize I could leave more than one link on Instagram. I hardly ever go on there, but so now there's 2 links on Instagram. There's the link to come join us on YouTube if you just want to be in the chat with us. Very friendly people here in the chat who would just love to talk with you, and you know what I mean? So you're not watching alone. Or if you're on Facebook and you want me to see your comments, because I always, speaking of forgetting, I always forget to go back to Facebook to check the comments, and I need to go post the link to call in on Facebook. So let me do that right now. But if you're on Facebook watching and you want to come join us, just go to YouTube, go up to my bio, click the link to come join us on YouTube. If you're on Instagram, you can do the same thing where it says join us on YouTube, click that link. But if you want to call in, click the other link, click the StreamYard link to call in. All right. Let me just share this on Facebook real quick, and then we'll get going. All right. So I do have a caller in the queue. This might be I'm not sure who this is. This might be somebody we've spoken to before, but we shall see. Let me just pin this comment real quick. All right, it's pinned. So the topic today, I was going to do an open Ask an Atheist. I told Mythos Boy, who's here in the chat, I was also going to do a whole episode on Isaiah 53, but I think I want to hold off on that for the time being. But I decided to roll with this title, Why Are You a Christian? What's up, Without Faith? Good to see you. Says, hey, Brady, when I was a Christian, I would be willing to bet that it was mostly because of where I was born. Yeah, that's probably why you're a Christian, but I don't think that's what you would have said if I would have asked you why you were a Christian. You probably would have tried to come up with something a little more intellectually respectable than just I was born in America. Mythos Boy says, I'm a Christian. Whoops. Not a Christian. Weirdo Rock, what's up? Gloopity gloppity. Glorpity. What's going on? Truer Gold. Can I say that Truer Gold is our old friend, or are you incognito? You let me know if I can say who you are. But what's up, Truer Gold? Good to see you. Send me that pic too, because Truer Gold was just up in Philly last week and got a chance to take a pic here in the studio. And if you've been watching for a while, then you probably already know who Truer Gold is. All right. Ambassador LPW says, we in there. What's up, everybody? Good. My Unique Monique is here. Daryl Williams with the salutations. Mythos Boy reminding you to hit the links. What's up, Noon? Says, happy Monday. All right, let me get to the call, then I'll get back to the chat. I see a few more folks I don't need to say what's up to. Let me get to this call before it drops. All right. Welcome to Ichabod. John, what's going on?
Hello, Brady.
John, we spoke before, correct?
That is correct.
All right. And just remind us, where are you at in your journey with things? I believe you are theist, correct?
That's correct.
And theist who is
a Christian.
Where were you at with a Christian, but where were you at with the Bible? I'm trying to remember, but it gets so hard after a while to try to keep
I understand that. Basically, I believe the Bible, but you asked me if I believe it's inerrant, and I told you I'm not sure, but I do believe
Okay.
it.
Yeah. And just hearing your voice is bringing back the conversations that we had. So, well, what's up, John? So the title already asks you, why are you a Christian? Did you call in to answer that, or something else?
Yeah, so we from our last conversation, I thought maybe I could carry on with some of the stuff we said, or I could give you some arguments, or I could just answer your question. I've only got like about 20 minutes because my 9-year-old's
Okay.
watching my
let's
child.
let's try to do one argument, and then you can ask a question, because I don't get a lot of arguments. Like, it's weird that I do this show, but I hardly get the arguments for God on this show. So
Do you want an argument for the resurrection, or do you want an argument for belief in God?
Let's deal with the resurrection, since the title is "Why Are You a Christian?"
Okay, so this is not the reason I'm a Christian, because I didn't know this argument when I became a Christian. I became a Christian because I had an experience, but this is just an argument for it. So I did post this. We just spoke on Facebook. So I called this argument unlikely correlations, and so I'm going to give you an analogy. Right. Yeah. So it's an analogy.
Undesigned. What do they call it? Undesigned coincidence or something like that. Yeah. Okay.
Right, yeah, but this is an argument for the resurrection. That's for the Bible having a coherent story. But so the analogy I'm going to give is, imagine you're walking down the street and a man runs around the corner, and he tells you there's been a shooting. But then another person comes around that corner screaming, and another one comes bloodied up, and then you see a police car with its sirens blazing going in the opposite direction. Now, you'd think to yourself, well, he must be telling the truth, because these things are unlikely to correlate if he wasn't telling the truth. And since they're unlikely to happen just in general, but they correlate well with what he's saying, they're not necessary. Like, there could be a shooting and none of these things happen, but they correlate well with what he's saying, and they're unlikely to be true just in general. Therefore, they act as evidence. And that's the way I want to present this argument for the resurrection. I want to give 5 correlations. Well, I should just give 4. I'll give 4 correlations that I think help in the same way show, hey, there's something to the resurrection. Okay. So the first one is,
hold on real quick.
Yeah.
If I can. Well, I wonder if I should challenge the example, or let you show how the Gospels or the Bible or the resurrection fits the example, and then I'll go back. I'll let you go ahead. I'll let you cook. Go ahead.
Okay. You could challenge it if you want, because maybe that will cut
me
off.
Let me just make sure I understood it. You're saying somebody comes and says there was a shooting.
Yes, you're walking down the street.
The second one,
you're walking down the street, and all you know, you're walking down the street, and a man comes running around the corner, and he tells you there's been a shooting. So all you've got is a claim. And then after he says that, another person runs around the corner screaming, and another person runs around the corner bloodied up, and then a police car with its sirens go in the opposite direction, blazing. Now, you have good reason to believe his claim, because those things that happened around it are unlikely to happen just in general, but they correlate well with what he's saying happened. So they act as evidence for it.
Okay. I won't challenge it, because I'm thinking about, like, the idea of what's unlikely versus likely really depends on where you are. Like, I live in Philadelphia, and all kinds of things can happen that don't necessarily correlate, but you could put a story together like, yo, this, and this. But anyway, I'm not going to go there with it. I hear what you're saying, so go ahead.
Yeah. So there's 2 ways you could look at it. You could, 3. You could just say they're completely coincidental. They come from an unrelated cause, which to me seems very unlikely that all those 3 things that suit that specific claim would all come from separate causes. Or you could say they're not coincidental. They are all related by a cause, but the cause is not what he's saying. But or it could just be it fits well with his claim, and it's all related to the same cause. So
you've done enough of the work of teasing out how likely or unlikely it is. I don't have to challenge it, so I'm with you already. So let's go on to the resurrection then.
So the first correlation I'm going to bring up is one I spoke to you about before, and I'm going to set it in the biblical context. Obviously, in Genesis it says that the heavens, the stars, and everything was set for a sign, and in Psalms it says the heavens give knowledge, and then in Matthew the Magi know from the signs in the heavens that a king's being born. With that biblical context, I'm going to quote a Chinese emperor from it's called The History of the Last.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned this. Yeah, I remember you mentioned this last time.
So he says, yin and yang have mistakenly switched, and the sun and moon were eclipsed. Obviously, we would say echoing Luke. The sins of all people are now on one man. Pardoned is proclaimed to all under heaven. And then there's other quotes about what happened during that time. But that's the main quote. But I'll give you another quote. In the day of, and this is a Chinese name, but it's Gei Hei or something. The last day of the month, there was a solar eclipse. The emperor avoided the throne room, suspended all military activities, and did not handle official business for 5 days. So this obviously impacted him very highly. Now, this quote comes from AD 31, but it can be disputed between AD 31 and AD 33, but it's believed to be AD 31. Now, I'm presenting that as the first correlation. A strange thing that you've got the claim that Jesus died, rose again, died for our sins, and in the biblical context of the stars being signs, and then you've got a Chinese emperor that's completely disattached from what's happening to Israel in AD 31, making this claim that one man has come and died for the sins of all people, and now pardons proclaimed to all under heaven.
All right, so I know you got limited time. I just Googled this, and I'm not saying that this is the case. I just want to read you what the Google says. All right.
Of course. Yeah.
The phrase yin and yang have mistakenly switched, claiming an ancient Chinese emperor wrote about Jesus, is an internet apologetic legend. While Emperor Guangyu of Han did record routine solar eclipses and traditional self-blame imperial edicts, phrases about sin on one man or a man from heaven are altered or entirely fabricated translations. What the real text says: traditional edicts. Chinese emperors often blamed themselves for natural disasters like solar eclipses, viewing them as cosmic warnings about their own moral failings. Last thing I'll read, standard language. Imperial edicts used routine phrases about the ruler taking responsibility, quote, the fault rests on me alone, to appease heaven, which Christian apologists later reworded to mirror biblical crucifixion narratives. So just off rip, I mean, the lore is, no, this is something like, there is a there, but it's not where the apologists says it lies. There's something there. There's a core, a kernel of truth to this urban legend, but the apologists are spicing it up for their own intentions. Now, I don't know enough about this to comment more on it, but I will tell you this. I've seen the apologists have their cover blown and their story blow up in their face. And I think I may have even told some of the apologist stories, because when I was a Christian looking for, the silver bullet to convince somebody, I would tell one of these kinds of stories. And then later on realize, damn, that's kind of an urban legend. And I had to ask myself, are you going to keep telling that story? So I don't know that it's what I just found on Google. And I don't know that it's what you said, but I will just caution that those kinds of tales, to me, it sounds like the things that apologists often do to bolster confidence in resurrection claims. But that's just a quick Google. I don't want to take too much more away from your time. You have anything else besides the Chinese emperors?
Yeah, I do, but I would say it's funny what you found on Google is the opposite of what I found with Grok AI. So I asked Grok AI, and it actually confirms it as being a proper quote. Because
does it give you the source?
Yes, yeah, it gives me the source. I can quote it to you. It's the History of the Latter Han Dynasty, Volume 1, Chronicles of Emperor Guangyu, 7th year. And I've just did it in again on a separate one. Yeah, it says, oh yeah. So
the thing.
Hang on, it does say that there's a separate translation that can translate it separately, where it's pretty similar, but it says the faults of the common people rest upon me alone, a great amnesty proclaimed. So it does say there's a separate possible translation, but it does say that it's a plausible translation, the one I gave. So that's interesting. Because when I first asked it, this is the second time. When I first asked it, it confirmed it. This time,
but you can get AI to say anything if you just word your question a certain way.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because what I
Yeah.
checked it on AI before, so I thought it was clear. But then when I said can it quote it differently, it said yes, it
That's
can.
why I say, even though I just did a quick Google, I'm not even willing to trust my Google. I'm just saying, like, so these are the things that you find, and you have to go search these things further. But I know because I'm ashamed to say it. I did some of the apologetic tricks where I'm like, I don't even know how true this is, this thing that I'm saying is, but I heard the story, so let me retell it. It's almost like I posted about this a few weeks ago on Facebook. Somebody did a video about these drillers who were drilling down into the earth, and at some point their drills couldn't go any further. And then what happened was Christians, some kind of way, they took that story and it was a real story about they had to stop drilling. And Christians took it and started telling the story that they got so deep that they got close to hell and started hearing screams of people in hell. And that's why they had to stop drilling. And now, when I was a kid, they told me that story and it made me even more afraid of hell. And I think at some point early on, before I became more of a biblicist, at some point in my evangelism, I told that story. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the things that you say that bolster confidence in the claims that you're making, but there really is no there. So I don't know. That's sort of where I'm at. But maybe you have more other than the Chinese emperors.
I do, but now I'm starting to worry about Grok telling me falsely because I checked these on Grok before I came on. But the other one, I guess I do. I could go for the separate argument instead of these correlations, but I could give you the next correlation. This one is actually from the Talmud, so it's right in front of me. I'm actually reading it. So
hold on, because I'm a very curious person. Even if, like, let's just say that there was a Chinese emperor who said that in 30 AD or whatever the case would be, I still would feel like I don't know, it's just me. I would have a problem with the God who has the ability to do that. And then, but he doesn't. Maybe he did it in 30 AD. Maybe he did it in 564 AD. Maybe he did it in 12. But he could do that all day, every day, if he really cared about bringing people to himself. I would be more offended if he only had these few isolated pieces. Somebody in the chat said Muslims are having dreams about Jesus. Why not give everybody a dream about Jesus? Why don't we all wake up the next day and look around like, yo, I had this dream, and somebody said, yo, I had a dream that was similar. Yo, you too. And like, if God could do any of these things, why these isolated cases that could be so like unverifiable?
Yeah,
wouldn't you have a problem with that?
I see what you're saying. Well, obviously, in this context, it would be like a big event like the death and resurrection. If it correlated, it wouldn't be like just like believe in me, but God relaying what's happening. But I will say this in terms of like the hiddenness argument. Sorry, my son's just talking to me. In terms of the hiddenness argument, people will say, you know, why didn't God make everyone believe in him? But I think there might be more than God just wanting people to believe in him. And I know you might say this was true of yourself, but that might be a necessary step to have a relationship with him, but not a sufficient one. And a sufficient one might be a heart that's completely willing to take whatever the cost is to follow him. Now, I know you said you had that. You're different though, because you were a Christian, you fell away. I'm wondering more about people who, because I know a lot of people who weren't Christian who got something like that. Now, I don't know now, well, they're a Christian, if they start to doubt it, if God would give them anything more, I don't know. I do know I had personal friends that when they weren't Christians looked for God in that way and found him in that way. But like I say, if they were to say to God, oh, that's not good enough for me anymore, I need some more, I don't know if God would answer that. But so it might be the case that belief in him is necessary, but it's not sufficient. And he's looking for the sufficient reasons before he even bothers trying to give the belief, because it doesn't achieve anything. I don't know. It's just pure.
No. I mean, that's worth thinking about. And I need to think about that. But I do think I'm still a little leery of those ideas of people seeking and finding. Like the Chinese emperor thing would hold a little more weight than just people who grew up in a Christianized land having, thoughts about Jesus or dreams about Jesus. Like even the Muslim, like, how do you know that the Muslim who's having dreams of Jesus, if they are, because I went and researched those claims of Muslims having dreams of Jesus, and it was Christians making those claims, not Muslims making those claims. But even if you do have Muslims making that claim, how do you know that it's not just a person who's heard the gospel and ended up in a situation where they had such a like like whatever they were confronted with, Allah wasn't helping them, and they found themselves wanting or reaching out for something more. And this old story of Jesus that they heard now comes creeping back in their subconscious, and now they're dreaming about Jesus. It doesn't have to be anything supernatural. It could be very natural explanations as to why this Muslim is dreaming about Jesus.
Yeah, there's always speculation on everything.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't know. I can only say for myself that I had an experience. That's what made me become a Christian. That's what's keeping me a Christian. I definitely see the issues with the Bible that critical scholars bring up, and I've seen you bring. I've read some of your book as well. It definitely.
I don't know. Have you ever shared? I'm not asking you to necessarily, but have you ever shared your experience when we talked?
I did. So my experience was, I had a lot of experiences, but one of them was confirmed externally, and that was, I was in my room. I was 17. I'd just been converted, and I heard, as best as I can describe it, an audible voice, but on the inside, and it said another person who'd been converted was about to sin, and I had to go stop him.
Oh, yes, right. Okay, gotcha.
And then
so but I'm sorry to interrupt you. I guess that one wouldn't be as important for this conversation because, like you said, you had already converted to Christianity, which means at that point you're already interpreting everything in favorable terms for the religion. What was the experience that you had that got you in the door of the religion?
So what got me in was nothing as strong as that. And I've got to say, I'd never heard an eternal voice before then. So this was just, it popped into out of nowhere. I was on a computer playing a computer game. And so it got me. But the one that got me is I just felt led by the Holy Spirit for a week. And my brother was having the same experience. And then we both converted on the same date, but we didn't know it was happening to the other at the same time. And that's what got me. But it's after I converted. I remember I threw music out. I threw so much stuff out. I just threw my bins out. I completely repented. And then after that, I started getting these more significant experiences, which I'd never had up to that point. In fact, I got a not a very nice experience. I was in the shower praising God. I'd just been converted, and I heard a voice, and it was so abrupt, it made me jump. I actually got startled. I spun around, and it just told me I'm going to end up becoming a fool. And I don't know why it told me that, but I was just in the shower praising God, and I heard, "You're going to become a fool." But it was so next to the back of my head and so close that I spun around in absolute shock. There was no one there. I still to this day cannot make sense of that at all. I have never experienced it again. I did meet one Christian who told me the same thing happened to him, and he was an old Christian, but I'd never heard anyone else say it. I don't know how to make of that. Sometimes I worry with all this critical scholarship. Maybe I will become a fool. I don't know.
Well, maybe if it was God, it could have been when I was a Christian, I would have probably taken it as you're going to become a fool for Jesus. The foolishness of God is wiser than man's wisdom. You're going to be a fool for. I would have taken it. I would, unless I thought there was something demonic going on, I would have just taken it as, okay, God, I'll be a fool for you. But I guess in all of your time serving and being a Christian, I know you've said you have even more experiences after that. I'll make it personal. I'll speak about me. I've had to go back through all of my experiences and reorient my understanding of them. And the thing about it is, there aren't any that I can't reorient. And we've talked about this. I'm remembering as I'm going on, even as I try to reorient myself, okay, that was a coincidence. Okay, that was this or that was that. I still at times find myself saying, but come on, that's a coincidence. Are you sure that was? But I'm it has to be. What else is it? Because if I have to add, like you said, you got problems with the Bible, but the same God that you think maybe spoke to you in the shower is the same God who's behind all this Bible stuff that you might have issues with. So if I have to give the God of the Bible credit for my experiences, but I know I can debunk the Bible, that probably means I can debunk my experiences too if I thought about it hard enough.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I will say I don't have a problem with the Bible. I see the problems people bringing up as being legitimate, rational. Now, they're probabilistic. They could be false. And I do stay by a biased default in the hopes that they're false. But I do see the power of a lot of them, and I think they're probabilistic. But because I'm already a believer, and the Bible sort of came with the package deal as the manual to what I had experienced, I take it that way. And I don't get it. So I don't need the Bible to. And I think there are some people make arguments from the Bible. I think not all of them bad. Obviously, you're familiar with like the minimalist facts argument for the resurrection and things like that. I don't think they're bad. I think they're okay. But I do see some of the problems people say, like contradictions. Like my issue with contradictions is you'll see like a contradiction in the Bible, and what someone will do, they will try to harmonize it, and they look at the pliability of language, and they will take a very unprobabilistic way of language being communicated to try and harmonize it. But what they don't recognize they're doing is when you do that, what you're actually saying is the Bible speaks in a very misleading and imprecise way, because the first way you read one passage was a certain way, and then when you read another, you said, well, I can't interpret it that way, so now I have to find within the pliability of language. It doesn't matter if it's improbable, but at least if it's possible, I'm going to take it that way. And I don't mind, maybe it's true, but it does concede then that the way that the language is being communicated is very misleading and very.
I love what you're saying. Yeah. So let me ask you that, if you let me know when you got to go, because I know you got Shorty in the background there. But if you're saying what you're saying about the way people deal with language in the Bible when they come with contradictions, and you don't really buy that, what do you do with things like dual meaning prophecies or double fulfillment prophecies, where the second way people are taking these passages from the Old Testament and try to apply them, it's like, wait, that's not a natural reading of that text, and you're kind of forcing that in there. Like, do you buy the double fulfillment of prophecy, or do you apply your same skepticism that you just expressed to the double fulfillment of prophecy claims?
It depends which prophecy you're talking about, because I take an amillennialist view. So a lot of them are just spiritualized prophecies. I don't have to take but there are some, I know what you mean, like in Matthew and things like that, like the abomination of desolation, like critical scholars will think that was for the Maccabean, and then some scholars say, yeah, that's true, but it double prophecy, it happened again in AD 70 and things like that. So it depends which ones you're talking about. But I have a bias. I will buy it because I'm a Christian, but I see why people have issues with it. But my experience to me was so powerful, so valid, and it came in the context of the Bible. Now I'm willing to think maybe with some mistakes in the Bible, maybe some issues, but the issues that it does talk about that I know are true is the spiritual life I received. So that's so I know at least that part correlates with exactly what I experienced. Now you could say, oh, it's just you got some psychosis going on, some religious psychosis. It didn't feel that way to me,
but psychosis is not going to feel that way. It's going to feel like so there's oh my gosh. And I think it was in Hawaii that it just happened. There's a kid who was a swimmer. I don't know if you heard about this. He's a swimmer, an athlete, and he was having a moment, and they heard him screaming out, "I'm Jesus, I'm Jesus," and he was actually harming someone, and he actually unalived the person. But he was screaming out, "I'm Jesus." If you were to ask him, did it feel like psychosis? I'm sure he would. If he ever comes to his right mind, I'm sure he would tell you that in that moment, it didn't feel like psychosis. And I don't even know if I like the term psychosis. I just think a lot of times, to be honest, I think very many people just don't understand how powerful our brains are in terms of helping us make sense of our experiences. And we kind of reach out and latch onto the vocabulary and the explanations that are presented to us by our culture, but really it's our brain doing something, not necessarily playing tricks on us, but it's just our brains trying to close loops. That's all we're trying to do, is close a loop so that we can get by the current moment. And sometimes we close those loops with religion and religious terminology because that's all we have available to us. For me, getting a handle on some other things made me realize, oh, I don't need that to close these loops. As a matter of fact, it was giving me false readings of closed loops. The loops were actually still open. We don't know what came before the Big Bang. My Bible told me it was God. Like, it's closing loops for me that are actually still open, and I probably need to have a more open mind to join, or at least wait for those in our ranks who are going to help us actually close these loops, so that we don't have to have fictitious closing of loops, if that makes any sense.
It does. It doesn't really resonate with my experience, just because, like, if I was in a
Mhm.
church setting and I was just getting a feeling, I could definitely see. But for me, if I'm just never had this experience before, I'm on a computer, completely fixated on what I'm doing, and then I hear an
Mhm.
audible voice that sounds like as good as
Mhm.
hearing you, but on the inside, and then it
Yeah.
correlates with the actual reality I go and see. To me, I just can't get around that. I just feel like that's
Yeah.
so
I get it. Yeah.
significant to me that I just think, oh, I'd feel like I'm denying reality by denying what I experienced.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
I haven't had many of these experiences. I've had one where I was led to save a person from suicide. That was a very significant experience, and there was a person, and he was about to commit suicide. I saved him. I've had a few others, but they've been a handful. They're not
Mhm.
something that I can say. All I can say in my more normative experiences, when I seem to follow the Lord and do and live for the Lord, I have an internal, what the best way I can describe it is, life and light. But when I'm not, I have an internal darkness and death. But now you might say,
Mm.
well, that's not my experience. I walked away. I'm completely fine. Or, that's all I can say for me. That's what I experience when
Yeah.
when I'm not. But I
Mhm.
don't have these significant ones very often. In fact, I would say in the last 5 years maybe in the last 5 years, I've had none. But in my early walk, in my early conversion, I had a few. So
Mm.
I don't know what to say about that. But
Yeah. I get you.
with the Bible, though, I will say this: I can definitely see why people find what they look like issues with the Bible. It doesn't mean the Bible's not generally reliable, but if they're looking at it in a sense of, like a book. I saw your issues with Genesis. That's quite impactful. If Genesis is really flat earth cosmology, I could think about 3 arguments you could make to really, like, try and undermine it. So
Have I ever asked you, do you believe or do you accept, rather, the science about evolution or no?
well, I read your book. I read your book and I saw what you did, and the best evidence for you was the genetic evidence, where it looks at
Hmm.
erogenous retroviruses. And
Hmm.
I would have to look more into it, because I'm thinking, is this true for all animals that have a common ancestor? So you say it's true for, like, us with the apes because we have a common ancestor, but what about other types of animals? And now, if I found that genetic evidence with all of them and they all
Hmm.
shared, then I'd say we first start with the hypothesis here. We can look at it just from morphology, and then we see all of them seem to have this. Then I'd say that's really good evidence. But if I start looking at other animals and they have common ancestors, but they don't share these erogenous retroviruses and codes, I'd say, well, to me, then the one for the human one can probably be explained in a different way. But if they are all the same, then I'll say, well, it correlates so strongly that
Hmm.
it looks like it. So, do you know about the? I haven't looked into it yet. Do you know about these other animals, whether they have it or not?
Well, no. So it's not just that we have it with the great apes, and maybe dogs will have it with wolves or something. It's
Mm.
not just, no. We have it with dogs. We just to a lesser degree. Like everything on this planet that's alive is related. Like it's like the findings are it's gradations of relation. It's not just like, oh, these groups over here are related and then completely unrelated to these groups over here. You just have to go further back in the gene pool to see the relation, unless one or two things. Because if that's not true, then either something like the Bible is true, where God or an alien or something made each species individually, or life evolved separately a bunch of times on planet Earth. And it's almost like too amazing to believe that it evolved even once. So I think it's probably more probable that life evolved, or abiogenesis happened once, and when it happened, it kept happening. And then that's where you get the branches off from the tree, so that the further and further back you go, you're going to find relation amongst all living things on the planet, not just the canines or the cats or the apes or whatever.
Hmm. I'll have to look into it. When you were speaking, you were saying some very interesting things, and then I had to mute my mic because my son
Oh,
was talking.
yeah.
But what I will say is, because since we got on evolution, I'll give you one argument I think for theism that relates to this, and I want to see what you think about it then, because this would
Mhm.
argue in an opposite direction. Um, so you know that obviously, as a Christian, I look around, things look designed. Obviously, whether the evolution and there was a maker behind it or whatever, the things look designed. And even Richard Dawkins, says is his famous quote. What was it? Biology is a study of things that appear to have been designed for a purpose. So things, at least at epistemic level, they appear designed. Now, I want to quote you a study, and the study is called, it's a social science study. The study is called, and you can type this on Google, and I'm just going to give you actual quotes directly from the study. The study is called The Divided Mind of a Disbeliever, and the subtitle is Intuitive Beliefs About Nature as Purposefully Created Among Different Groups of Non-Religious Adults. So the study basically went round and they did tests on people to see how they perceive of nature. And this is one quote. Increasingly, it says this, increasingly defaulted to understanding natural phenomena as purposely made when they did not have time to censor their thinking. And another quote, the tendency to construe both living and non-living nature as intentionally made derives from automatic cognitive processes, not just practiced explicit beliefs. And my last quote, design-based intuitions run deep, persisting even in those with no explicit religious commitment, and indeed even among those with an active aversion to them. And I just want to summarize something and give you my argument. So it seems that when they did speed tests, they didn't have time to censor their thinking. They automatically went to nature being as purposely designed, and they believe this is not based in any beliefs, but it's based in our very perception, the belief forming mechanisms that come through perception. They think it's in perception, so we have to, whether consciously or subconsciously, censor it to get rid of that perception. Now, I want to give you an argument off of that, right? So,
hold on, real quick. I'm just curious. What is this that you're reading from?
So the study is called, let me get the title for it. It's called The Divided Mind of a Disbeliever, and the subtitle is Intuitive Beliefs About Nature as Purposefully Created Among Different Groups of Non-Religious Adults.
And who's the study done by?
It's a university. I haven't got it. I've got my own notes here. I'd have to pull it up again. I could put it into AI. Let me, if you want.
And I'm only asking because I would be concerned about
it's a proper university.
About the motives.
I believe it was a university, and I remember it being quite an extensive one. They did 3 in the end. Okay, who did this study? I'll see what it says, but in the meantime, I'll give you my argument off of it. So you can hold it with a pinch of salt. You can just grant it for argument's sake, and then see if the argument I make up of it follows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if it does, then maybe you can go back and see if the study is even true. But at least I know I get that perception. I know a lot of people say they have that perception, and I know someone like Alvin Plantinga calls it the sensus divinitatis, and it's a commonly known thing. So my issue is this. So I remember you debated. I didn't watch the debate, but I know Eric Hernandez, not personally, but I used to know him through Facebook, and I feel his argument from Alvin Plantinga's argument, it's like a gun without a bullet. Now I think this gives a bullet. Now I'm gonna state it to you to see what you think. So if we take an atheistic evolution, either we evolved, our belief forming mechanisms evolved for adaptation, not truth. Now the argument against that is, hey, true beliefs are what makes us survive. So we've got 2 options: either true beliefs are what makes us survive, or false beliefs help us to survive. Now, if we say true beliefs make us survive, then we adapted to form true beliefs. Well, then you've got a problem. We've got a belief forming mechanism that tells us everything's created by a God. And so you either say, okay, well, the mechanism is buried right into our perception, therefore needs to be considered as a valid mechanism because it's there and it's evolved to find truth. Okay. Now, if we say, okay, false beliefs actually help us survive, then we've got a problem there, because now we can't trust our belief forming mechanisms. We've got undercutting defeater, and so you've got like a dilemma, and it makes it even worse, because if we have this a second argument off of it, if we have this thing built into our perception and true beliefs make us survive, and it's there because it helps us to survive, then that means atheism is dangerous to society, because the reason we don't have it is because the atheistic society's died out. And so if you look at it from an atheistic naturalistic point of view, you're in a big dilemma if this thing exists. But I would even add a further thing. It obviously doesn't help us survive. So it's clearly put in us by something else, not evolution. So I could make a few points off of it.
Well, yeah, I get lost in that type talk, not just because it's philosophy, but there's a lot going on there that just confuses me a little bit. And even when I was talking with Eric, I was confused with what he was saying. I had to go back and listen to it to understand what he was saying. In our second conversation, I think I was able to understand them a little bit better and challenge the idea. I don't know if you're saying you watched the first one or the second one or both, but or you're saying you saw that it was going on. But the idea of our brains being designed or being or functioning to look for truth, I think our brains are helping us navigate the natural world. And I think true things can help us do that. I think false things can help us do that. But I think true things just happen to help us do it better in most cases. Now, there's sometimes you can have a placebo effect. You can give somebody a fake medicine and tell them this just cured your cancer, and it changes the person's whole demeanor, their whole outlook. It even helps them to hope, and that might even cause them to release certain endorphins and chemicals in the brain. And in those cases, a false statement can produce a result that you want. But does that mean that you should always go around giving false statements? I think there's certain cases where you might think, or you might even find that it helped you do a certain thing. It may not help you do all things well. It might help you do certain things well. But I think in general, what you want is truth, because on average, true statements are going to help you navigate the natural world. If you go, this is the thing I got into with Eric Hernandez. If you think you're Superman and you go step into the middle of the street and get hit by a car, well, that false belief is not going to help you. There could be some ways where you tell somebody that they're Superman and they go and stand up to a bully and they beat the bully up and the false thing helped them. It's not going to help you in every case. I think on average, true statements are going to help you. And the brain has developed in such a way to look for what is most expedient. And on average, I think true things are going to do that. So that's my response to what you're saying. I don't know if I'm actually addressing the challenge that you made about the undercut of the fetus and all that, because I kind of get lost in all that
So I
talk.
gave you a dilemma, and you've tried to split the horns of the dilemma. So I said, if it's true beliefs that make us survive, then we've got to trust this thing as true belief. But if it's false beliefs, then we can't trust our belief forming mechanisms. What you try to say is, well, it's a mixture of both. And so I sit somewhere in the middle. But what I would say is, if we take that position, first of all, this belief forming mechanism is actually rooted in our very perception. It doesn't seem to just be a belief, but it's our very perception. So that's a big problem. We've evolved it in the very perception of when we view things. This is how we interpret them. Not just that I form the belief, but I perceive it that way. But I would also say, let's just hold on,
because I want to understand what you're saying. Like, I don't even know what you mean when you say if what is in our perception, the concern for truth.
No, the belief that everything is purposely made, created.
Okay. So even attaching that to that other conversation, I had a hard time doing that just now. Yeah. The idea that everything is purposefully made, even the idea that things are purposefully made, I don't know the study you're talking about. I'd have to look at it. But I think the idea of things being purposefully made, the reason why that's in our perception is simply because of it's our experience that we see things coming, like we see things being made. We go to stores where there are products on shelves. We know that there are manufacturers of those products. And because our experience tells us that if something is something works the way I want it to work, or something meets a need that I have, it must have been designed, because we see things that have been designed to do that. And then we take that principle and apply it to any time we find something. If I went into the forest and I saw a fallen tree limb, and it fell in such a way that it looked like I could comfortably sit on it, I might think somebody designed this. I might even think that some other traveler before me hewed it down and fashioned it to sit. But I don't know that's the case. Like, so there may be things that we've found to benefit us, or things that work for us. And because we've seen other things made specifically for us in stores and packaged and shrink wrapped and all that, we assume that anytime something works for our benefit, it must have been made that way. And then we apply that principle to the entire natural world.
Well, it's interesting you should say that. Obviously, so you would say that we get it from, we see humans make things, and then we just interpret that onto reality itself, like the stars, the sun, and we say, oh, they look made too. Must have been a being beyond them. And obviously,
it's a selfish outlook, because it's not just they look made. It's they look made if they do something for me. If they don't have any kind of function for me or people like me, I won't even give it a second thought about its design.
See, in the study, it says that they came to see living and non-living things both as designed, as both created.
No, I'm not.
So
what I'm saying is, even if it's a non-living thing,
Mhm.
if it can have a function for me, I'm going to see it as potentially or maybe even likely designed. But if it has no function for me, living or non-living, I'm not going to give it that benefit. Like, you walk past things all the time. You may walk past a, go to a cave and see stalagmites or stalactites or something like that, and you'll see the symmetry, or you'll see the shape, but you won't necessarily think it's design. You'll just think, wow, I can't believe this cave had this water dripping and it formed around this rock and it did all. But you won't think it's design. You'll just think, oh, that's how it, until it becomes useful for you. Then you'll transfer it. Your brain's going to transfer it into the category of, wow, look at what our creator did. He designed this for us because it has utility for you. And that's what the brain is looking for, utility.
So you do know in the study, though, this is saying this was true of non-religious adults. So even when they're in the study, they mentioned how they did it in Sweden. So that's why they concluded this is embedded in our very perception. And it seems like you're talking more of inference, like I infer it. These are things I'm inferring, but the study is saying these are non-inferentially formed beliefs. And so an inference is like I say, well, if A is true, B is true, but I'm thinking about it, I'm inferring it. But non-inferentially are just what comes directly to me. Like,
but how do you know that? Like,
this is
if
what
your brain,
saying. This is so the
no, I'm saying, but how would I would need to know the methodology, because look, your brain, right? Your brain fires impulses or signals from your head to your toe at like 300 feet per second. That's how fast your brain is able. So how would you know whether somebody's making an inference or whether the perception that this was designed for me was embedded in their perception? If your brain is able to fire that fast and form ideas, how do you know perception from embedded ideas?
So the way they did it is they did speed tests. So when the test was slow, they didn't see nature as purposely designed. But when they didn't have time, and it literally says to censor their thinking. So when they had to do it off impulse, they saw.
No, but you're still thinking, even if it's before you're thinking, you're still thinking. Your brain is still putting two and two together.
Okay. Well, I guess you could doubt it. I think the evidence is pretty strong, but it seems non-inferential because it's just as true as any other non-inferential.
If you could send it to me on Facebook Messenger, I'd love to take a look at it.
Yeah. So I gave you the title. You should be able to find it from that. But I see it more like if I put a straw in a glass of water, it looks bent. Now, someone could say, how do you know that's non-inferential? How do you know you're not inferring? Well, it just appears that way. And maybe if I didn't have time to censor my thinking, I would say, oh, it's not bent. I know it's not because I can infer it's light refracting. But when someone's put me on a speed test, it's picking up of what I instantly perceive rather than what I'm thinking about. And I think that's what's happening.
I don't think you're factoring in the habit of mind. The reason why the speed test can get you that result is because you've developed a habit of mind of seeing things that were designed for you and thinking that you know how to recognize that versus something that's not designed. But that you only get that impulse of thought from experience. If you put that test to a 3-year-old, the 3-year-old is not going to have the same kind of instinctive, oh, that must be designed, because they haven't built up the repertoire.
They do. Okay. They did studies on children, but they see like
how young were the children?
Well, the age you could talk, but they would see the reason the birds sing is to make them happy and things like this. So whenever they asked them questions, they intuitively saw everything as having purpose.
No, but I'm sorry. Did you answer when I asked how young were the children?
When they were able to talk. So I don't know the age directly, but when they were able to communicate, as soon as they were able to communicate. This is a study I saw a while ago, so you have to take it with a pinch of salt. Again, I got the Chinese thing possibly wrong, so I wouldn't trust me on the internet either right now.
No, but it's an interesting idea. I just, like I said, in all of my having to deconstruct and reconstruct how I see the world and how I see us, the things that I've been learning about what we've become in our evolution, it's astonishing, but it doesn't make me say, well, no, I'm gonna be honest with you. I too sometimes fall into that. Like I'll fall into come on, you really think that this all just happened? It's gotta be. But then I realized, no, my mind has been conditioned to think that way. And so I've got to downshift it a couple of gears and slow it back down. Because you're right. If you just go off instinctive and speed test, your mind is going to do what you've trained it to do. And so I do think it takes.
Would you say it's training? It seems to me more nature. Like it's just intuitive to us. That's why I think we all.
But how do you get intuition? You've got to develop intuition, don't you?
Well, I don't think so. Not. I think that what the study's showing, and I think what most people would say, is it just appears designed. Again, like
Hmm.
when I put a like Richard Dawkins, nature is the things that have an appearance of being designed for a purpose. No one's denying that. My perception tells me, hey, look, it appears designed. I'm not inferring it. It just appears that
Yeah,
way to me. Just the same way that
yeah.
if I'd never seen anyone build a house, let's say I lived in
Hmm.
the jungle, never seen a house, and I walked past the house, it would just appear designed to me. I wouldn't know a human built it. I've never seen a human build it. It just has the appearance of having a designer. And I think that's what Dawkins is getting at. I think that's what me as a believer and other believers say when they say, look, just looks, it just appears like it's made. And I think that's what that study shows. And what I'm saying is, if we really do have this as a belief forming mechanism embedded in our very perception, then it seems a bit of a problem for me for atheistic
That's a
naturalism. Atheistic
that's a
naturalism.
strong. That's a very loaded statement, right? To this what you just say it was? You said appearance of what?
Of design.
No, what did you said loaded into our something you just said
Oh,
that
belief
just
forming mechanisms, and the belief forming mechanisms of our very perception, like it's loaded into how we even perceive the appearance of something. It's like
okay, that was the part of what you presented that I missed that made me say I'm confused by this. The belief forming mechanisms seem to be preloaded into our perception. That's the point
yeah,
that you were
yeah,
making,
yeah,
right?
something like that.
I
Yeah,
like this argument only because it kind of gives me, and I'm not trying to just take what you're saying and tear it down, but I would like to look at that idea and really the question as a skeptic that I would ask is, okay, then why are we like that? Because maybe we were designed that way, but if there's a naturalistic explanation, which is what I've been trying to do upon my first time hearing this presentation, if there's a naturalistic explanation as to why we have these seemingly belief forming intuitions, I would be very interested into why that might be. And I think naturalistically I can get there, but I'd like to take a look at the article to see the ins and outs of what they did and how they ended up where they are.
yeah, that's very reasonable. Just remember, I was trying to present it on the halls of dilemma. I was trying to say, if true beliefs are what help us to survive, then we formed
Hmm.
our belief forming mechanisms to form true beliefs, or they're quite accurate. So we should think, well, this one's quite accurate. Maybe it is getting it right when it perceives everything is purposely made. But if they aren't designed to track with true beliefs but false beliefs, then we could then start to doubt our very. We got undercutting defeated. We got skepticism for our own belief forming mechanisms. And then my other issue was, hey, look, if we did evolve this way, then it's telling us this is conducive to survival, which sort of implies atheism is not. So that's not saying what's true, but it's just implying, well, atheism seems less conducive to survival if we do have a universal, which this study seems to say, perception of the appearance of design when we look at nature. And I would add a third point. It doesn't look like it's something that we need to survive. So to me, it doesn't even fit evolution anyway, because it doesn't even look like something that will help you survive. It just seems to me it was placed in us. But there would be my 3 points, and I only wanted to summarize them. So because you said you're going to go over this, and I just want you to have that in your head to you sort of understand the
Yeah.
argument.
Okay. I appreciate that. Yeah. I appreciate that.
Well,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hey, let me let you go because I know you got the fam and all
Yeah,
that going
yeah.
on. So
I've got
always good talking
crying.
with you, John.
You too. Thank you for your hospitality
Yep.
as usual.
Thanks so much for calling.
Thank
All
you.
right. Yep. Get with you. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you for the $5 super chat. Weirdo Rock says, doesn't look designed to me. Even if it did, looks like does not equal is, especially given our pattern agency seeking instincts, which is what that study showed. Our minds are pattern seeking machines because I mean when you go back and look at how we became and what we're becoming, like it's not like we've stopped evolving as a species, but how we became what we are. The pattern seeking was beneficial. And the point that John was making is, okay, well then does that mean if we developed religious beliefs, does it mean that that was beneficial? I think if you get into things like social biology, you could end up saying it ended up being useful. This idea of a, you know, where we grow up with parents, we grow up with moms and dads, and the idea of an authority and somebody who's protecting us and clothing us and providing for us and all those things. If you could take the mom and dadness of reality and extrapolate that out and cast that onto the universe or a being and say, guess what? You might outgrow your mom and dad, but you'll never outgrow Father God. That's a beneficial idea. And so maybe even evolutionarily, that ended up being beneficial to us as a species to just continue thinking that the great mom and dad in the sky, it was a benefit to us as a species. And that's why religion ended up sticking around as long as it did, because evolutionarily it was beneficial. The societies that had mom and dads in the sky were able to keep their communities together longer and ward off undesirable behavior and train people in the desirable behavior, because you had this great mom and dad in the sky. And so evolution is all about, how am I going to stick around long enough to pass on my genes? Well, God ended up being, the idea of a God ended up being beneficial to help society stick around, which is, if you want to take that trajectory, you could say, this is why the white Christian nationalists are trying to institute religion into this country, because they see Islam and they say, look how beneficial religion has been for them. They got people willing to fight and die for their religion. We don't have that kind of commitment over here. We need something that strong. This is why Ayana Hirsi Ali, who was one of the, prominent atheists in this country or in the world, ended up converting to Christianity, not because of the truthfulness of Christianity, but because we need something that's going to help us stand against Islam. She had memories of a child, being a child and being physically tortured and abused as a young woman and a girl in Islam. And she's afraid that Islam is going to take over even in the West. And so she ran to Christianity, not for its truth content, but because just as a species, if we could just have a God, man, we can get people that are willing to fight and die and obey these commands and da-da-da-da-da. God is a useful idea. I don't need it, but I could see a society saying, damn, without flock cameras and without, you know what I mean? The NSA, without the government spying on all our phones and computers, how are we going to make sure that nobody's doing a terrorist attack? Well, maybe if we get God involved, maybe if we tell him there's an eye in the sky. So yeah, I think God is evolutionarily beneficial. Doesn't make it true. Does that mean we should all find ourselves in church this Sunday? No. I think some of us, many of us, what we ought to do, if we want to get a society that's not going to be beholden to somebody's dogma or dictates from a deity, what we need to do is strive to outgrow the need for a God. Strive to be more humanitarian or humanistic, I should say. Strive to do better and to be better and to define what we're actually saying is better. To come to the table and reason and say, well, why are you saying we should or should not do X, Y, or Z? And be vocal and speak about, hey, look, I'm not a theist. I'm not out here murdering and, sexually assaulting people, this, that, and the third. We don't need that to be good. We don't need that to have patriotism. Then again, maybe you do. How do you get people to sign up for something where they might lose their life? You tell them that if you die, you're going to get, virgins in heaven, or you're going to get streets of gold in heaven. Like, those are how you motivated people in the past. Are you telling me we got no better way to motivate people to do that today? I'm just giving my thoughts on the last call, trying to think things out and think things through here. But the line is open. I'll put the link in the chat again. If you are a Christian, the question is, why are you a Christian? Why should I be a Christian? Why should the people in the chat who were Christians, why should they return to be a Christian? And your Bible tells you that you ought to always be ready to give an answer to somebody who asks you, what's the reason for the hope that you have? And I'm asking, what's the reason for the hope that you have as a Christian? I don't have that hope. I remain an optimist, but I don't have that hope. So talk to us. If you're on Instagram, you want to call in, scroll up. The link is in my bio, not the link that says join us on YouTube. That link will get you just to the channel where you can join us in the chat. But if you want to join me on the stage and talk to me, the other link that says call in. Why are you a Christian? Call in. Click that link. If you're on Facebook, it's the top comment pinned under this video. And if you're here on YouTube, it's in the chat. I'll post it again and again and again. And the people with the wrench, they're probably posting it too. That will tell you how you can get in and call in. Programming note, this coming Saturday, August the 15th, we will be reading, for the Patreon supporters, we'll be reading through Anthony Flu's book, There Is a God. He's was a famous atheist who became a Christian. He passed away, but he became a Christian, not a Christian, I'm sorry. He became a theist and he wrote a book called There Is a God. So in the Patreon, we're reading through that. And this coming Saturday, we're going to try to do chapters 1 and 2. I'm thinking Saturday, probably around 2 p.m. Eastern. So that way the West Coast doesn't have to get up super early on a Saturday. So that'll be this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern. And I will put that in Patreon. I meant to do it before we got on the live today, but I forgot. But I do have a call. Don't think this is somebody I spoke to before, but it might be. Let's see. Please welcome James to Ichabod. What's up, James?
How you doing? Can you hear me?
I definitely can. James, have we spoken on here before?
We have not. We have not spoken on here before.
That's what's up. I love getting new callers, so thank you for calling in. I start by just asking people to represent where they are. Can you let us know, James, where are you at with the God question? Are you theist? Are you atheist? Are you agnostic? Where are you at with the God question?
Yeah, I'm a theist. I'm Christian. I definitely believe God exists for sure, 100% for sure. Mm-hmm.
Last question, perhaps. Where are you at with the Bible? Would you say that the Bible is the word of God? And if so, is it infallible and inerrant, or is it maybe something that God uses, but it's not necessarily inerrant or infallible?
Before we go there, I thought maybe the idea was given the reason for why I believe, but I can definitely answer those questions. But
well, no, we want to know how you rock with the Bible before you get into why you're a Christian, because that'll help us with the rest of the conversation.
Okay, so the question is, do I believe the Bible is infallible, the Word of God?
Do you believe it's the Word of God? And if it is it inerrant or infallible?
I do believe that it is infallible. I do believe it's inerrant in so much as, what God said when he spoke to those that he spoke to. I do believe that.
That's what's up. Okay, cool. So so now we can go to the the prompt for today. And the prompt is, why are you a Christian? And because you called, hopefully you understand me asking you this question. I'm going to sort of stress test your reasons to see if there are reasons that, because if you got good enough reasons, everybody should be a Christian. So I don't just want to hear your reasons. I would like to kind of stress test them and see how they hold up to scrutiny. Is that okay?
Well, sure.
Okay.
No problem.
Yeah. So why are you a Christian, James?
All right. So I guess the question is, all right, so kind of skipping past the idea of just theism, I would say, first of all, I don't believe that non-living matter produced living matter on its own. I don't believe that. And so I think there's only 2 options. I think that either non-living matter produced living matter on its own, or it didn't. So that means if it didn't happen on its own.
Can we stop real quick and define our terms? What do you mean by, what does it mean to be alive?
So life, there's been different definitions of life, but you're going to need probably about 4 characteristics. You're going to need self-replication, growth, homeostasis. Those are the things that they're going to, scientists or biologists are probably going to tell you the criteria, minimum criteria for life are going to be. So if you have, let's say, a self-replicating strand of RNA, that is not by itself, even though there's reproduction there, it's not going to be life, because again, you're going to need maybe metabolism, let's say the ability to metabolize and things like that. So does that answer the question?
So you said 4 characteristics: self-replicating,
I mean, I can
growth.
pull up
What
the
else did you say?
I can pull up minimum criteria. I can just pull up minimum criteria for life if that's easier.
Well, I guess I'm asking what your criteria is, because you're going to find different kinds of criteria. Everybody's going to have a different list of what it means to be alive. Matter of fact, it's getting to the point now where they're like, we don't even really know what it means to be alive at this point. But what is your criteria?
Okay, so let's say first of all, a rock is not alive, right?
Why not?
And then the ones because okay, so here we go. I just pulled up the criteria, and these I generally agree with all these. So
Okay.
cellular organization, metabolism, homeostasis, growth and development, reproduction, response to stimuli, and then they even throw in there on Google here evolutionary adaptation. So that's cool. That's fine.
So it can't just be one or two of those. It's got to be all of those, or can it just maybe have three and still be alive?
That's yeah. Again, there's going to be different people who are going to try to say what combination that you would need for people to generally agree. But yeah, it's not going to be just one of them. It's going to be a combination of them.
Are stars alive?
No, we wouldn't consider stars to be life.
Okay. Are individual molecules alive?
No, we wouldn't consider that to be life. Again, I just talked about the RNA molecule. That by itself, even though it reproduces, it's not alive.
Can individual molecules, if you put them together in a certain way, could the molecules do things that you say, wait, living things do that, but now all these molecules put together in a certain way, they start doing the things that you think only living things do. Once a molecule by itself can't do it, but you put them all together, start folding them, making proteins, the molecules all put together in a certain way, they could start doing things that you think only living things do, right?
Yes, me and you are collections of molecules in that sense. Now, when we say collection of molecules, we're talking about trillions and trillions of them. And
so what you're saying is not that non-living things can't become alive. What you're saying is non-living things can't organize themselves by themselves in a way that make them start doing what living things do. That's your point.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, the audio started getting weird.
Maybe it's me. It's me.
Hold on 1 second. Hello?
It was my fault. It was my fault.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, my mic does that around an hour and 15 minutes.
No problem.
So look in the chat. In the chat, they're telling me mic check, so they know. Your point is that it's not that non-living things like molecules can't be arranged in ways where they start behaving like living things. They can, but your point is they can't do that on their own.
Right. Exactly.
How do you know that? Because non-living things can be arranged in a way where they start performing like living things. How do you know that they can't arrange themselves that way?
So let me rephrase my answer. Let me not say no, they cannot. What I can say is that we've only observed living matter producing living matter. And so I have more reason to believe that life brought forth the first life than to believe that something non-life produced the first life. So,
but I'm curious, when you see when they find sugars in outer space, or when they find the chemicals that end up becoming proteins, and you find them self-assembling, not to the degree where you end up getting RNA, but rudimentarily self-assembling, and you find these on meteorites, do you say God took those molecules and made that sugar in space? Or do you think, damn, somehow that self-assembled, but we couldn't have self-assembled?
No, because again, the criteria is it's a bit more than just cellular organization. It's more than that. And so of course they're searching for life. They're doing that, trying to find life on other planets and outer space and things like that. As of yet, we have not found it. But no, that's nothing special to me. If you have sugars or if you have other molecules and chemicals, we believe that there were chemicals. A scientist can tell you that there would have been some concoction of chemicals on the early Earth. But that
Well,
assembly
to
that
get
you're
a
talking
sugar,
about.
that's not nothing, right? To get a sugar, you're talking about like you don't just get that just because this molecule ended up next to this molecule. There's got to be some folding, and there's got to be like this. That's nothing. I'm sorry, that's not nothing, is it? It's quite
Uh,
amazing, isn't
uh,
it?
not, I don't think sugars would be the yeah, I wouldn't think that sugars would be the most impressive thing.
No,
I
not
don't
the
remember
most
from
impressing.
chemistry.
Not the most impressing. I guess my question, I don't know if you've answered it. My question is, when you do find things like that in space, do you say God had to have formed those, or are you willing to allow that those could have self-assembled?
That the self-assembly is fine. That's cool. Yes, that's
Okay.
fine. Amino acids. If you have amino acids in a pond, that's cool. You can have all the amino acids you want.
That's not impressive to you?
No, that's not the level of
I'm not
impressiveness
saying it's
that
on the level of us
no,
or
no, I don't
even
think
RNA. I'm
a
just saying
chemical.
that's not impressive to you.
No, chemicals
Okay.
are a given. We're fine with chemicals and molecules. That's fine, right? That's cool. But what I'm saying is living matter. So let me get to the next part of this
Yeah. Mhm.
argument. So what we do see is that DNA,
Mhm.
for life that we see on Earth, DNA, this code is achieving this assembly of these molecules and these chemicals to make this thing called life. It's the
Mhm.
DNA code that instructs and guides the construction of this.
Yeah.
And so that there is the other reason to believe that it's something higher than ourselves that brought this life into being, because we've only observed code being produced by a mind, specifically a human mind. So we would say that if there's something that's producing the code that produced the human, that it would have to be at least higher than human. And so
Why
that's
higher? Why not lower? Like if like, do you understand that a strand of DNA is 1/20,000th of the width of a human hair?
Mhm.
Do you really think it has to be something higher to produce that? Or why can we not just be the amalgamation of very quantum, very small interactions that continue? Because it's not like, well, I don't know if you believe the Bible story that God just in one day made man, but if what we're finding in our scientific quest of the world is true, that it took millions and millions, billions of years for the things that we're so impressed by now to become as impressive as they were. So I guess I'm just curious. You said there's got to be something higher. Why can't it be something lower? Why can't it just be, I mean, unimaginable numbers of very smaller things, not higher things, that just amalgamated and became what we see now? Why's it got to be higher? Why can't it be lower?
So the reason it would have to be we would assume that it would be a higher intelligence is because, for example, the code that's running your computer, the code that's running the phone I'm holding, the code, we haven't observed a lower form of intelligence produce code in that way. So you could have, maybe there's, monkeys and other animals that have calls that they make to each other. Maybe there is some form of communication there. But as far as code that is guiding instruction, that is, I can't say written, but put together and structured the way DNA is, or the way computer code is, we haven't observed any other a lower life form doing that. Now let me say this. You might let's say I do grant that there is a lower life form that we would consider, that we have observed producing code. That would still cause me to believe that life is the only thing that we've seen producing code, or a mind. At least a mind is the only thing that we've seen producing code. So it still would get,
you might be right, but I guess the question would be, but maybe you're just starting what you think life is too late in the process. Maybe we don't know how small, how low, instead of high, life can actually begin, and our definitions of life are too limited.
Okay, so the reason they have those minimum criteria of life is because let's say you get the first life So none of this is actually necessary for the first life, actually, but for us to get from the first life to here what we are today, you need it. So for example, you could have a first living thing and it didn't have the ability to reproduce, right? It had metabolism and had all these things, but guess what? It goes extinct very quickly on the first try. It's going to go extinct because it can't reproduce itself. So you're like, okay, all right, so it's probably going to need to be able to reproduce. That's going to be a minimum criteria. So you start adding these criteria that you're going to say, for us to growth is going to, you're going to need growth because if you're starting very small to get to the point where you have something the size of an elephant or to the size of a whale or a human, when you start with maybe let's say a single-celled amoeba, growth, you're gonna need the ability to grow. So you start adding these things, and that's why you have these minimum criteria where they're gonna say, for us to get to where we are today, the minimum requirement would be this. Even though you could have a one-off that spawned in the prebiotic in some prebiotic soup, you get one that spawned, but it would go extinct on the first try because it couldn't go any further. So that's why they have those minimum criteria.
I hear you. I mean, all this is good to think about. I guess my question for you, though, is if your criteria, though, is we've never seen life assemble from non-life, you know what we also have never seen? We've never seen a God make life either. So why are you willing to accept that? Something you've never seen over something else you've never seen, but you have seen self-assembling amino acids and sugars. You've seen that. What have you seen in the God space that makes you say, even though I haven't seen it, I'm more willing to believe that than this is abiogenesis?
Okay, great question. So I'm going to bridge the gap. So you're correct in saying that this argument that I've just brought to you, it doesn't indicate a God anywhere. It doesn't specify a God, but it simply says an intelligence. So what I just gave to you was the intelligent design argument. And so that's what it's saying. It's saying that there is some intelligence, couldn't tell you who, I don't know the name, but it would have to be at least some type of intelligence that produced the code or that caused the life from non-life. That's the first step there. Now, the next question you're asking me is my personal belief. Why do I believe a God exists? Why am I a theist? So definitely the Bible story, Jesus and everything in there. We can. I do believe that is true. I believe it. I don't have proof that Jesus walked around on the earth from anything that I could read. I can't prove it, but I do believe it. I could say I buy the story. I buy it.
Why?
I believe it. I don't see anybody bringing. So for me, I would say prophecy. I believe
like what?
Prophecy.
Can you give me an example of prophecy?
Well, here's what I'm saying. So I believe that prophecy is one very good method if a God's going to try to prove himself. I would say, agree. Okay, if you can. Yeah, right. So I'm going to say, okay, if you can tell me that something's going to happen the next day and it happens the way you said it's going to happen, all right, I'll go with you on that. So in the Bible, it's shown that the God of Israel uses this repeatedly. And so for Jesus, for example, if you take the Messianic prophecies, basically what you come to is there's going to be one Jewish man who's going to be born in Bethlehem that's going to lead many people from all nations to believe in the God of Israel as the one true God. And
has that happened?
Example, he's a guy named Jesus. For example, me, I believe in the God of Israel because of the story of Jesus Christ that's in the Bible. And all the Christians that who you've debated, everybody, they all believe in the God of Israel because of the story of this person named Jesus that lived 2,000 years ago.
The reason why I asked you to give me a prophecy, because Jesus does not fulfill any. First of all, some of the things that Christians and the New Testament authors call prophecies were not prophecies. But then on top of that, Jesus doesn't fulfill any of the things that actually were prophecies. The idea of somebody from Bethlehem, how many people were from Bethlehem?
You're saying how many people were from Bethlehem? I don't know how many people were from Bethlehem.
How many people came from Bethlehem, do you think?
I don't know.
In the tens, hundreds, thousands, hundreds of thousands? Probably a lot, right?
I would only assume. I don't know what a lot is, but I assume there was a number of people. Yeah.
Plenty of people probably came from Bethlehem.
Right.
What does the passage say the person from Bethlehem was going to do, and did Jesus do it? Because if he didn't do it, then he didn't fulfill the prophecy. Anybody can be from Bethlehem, What was the person from
Well,
Bethlehem supposed to do?
so, like I just told you, I'm not quoting the Bethlehem prophecies particularly. I just gave you a couple of the prophecies for
No, but
Jesus.
so that's not how it works. If you say somebody from Bethlehem is going to do X, Y, and Z, then
Well, I
you
gave
actually are referencing a prophecy about somebody from
it.
Bethlehem, and I'm trying to figure
Just
out.
said it just said that the Messiah would come from Bethlehem.
No, that's not all it says. It says he's going to come from Bethlehem and he's going to free his people, and Jesus did not do that. He's going to become a king, and Jesus
Mhm.
did not do that. If you any messianic prophecy you find about Jesus, you know what Christians are going to say? They're going to say
Mhm.
it was partially fulfilled in Jesus, and it's going to be further fulfilled when he comes back again. The reason why you have to have partial fulfillment or dual fulfillment of prophecies is because Jesus does not fulfill any of the messianic prophecies. So if you're believing in Jesus because of prophecy, you probably need to find some other reasons. We can turn to any prophecy you want, and I would like to help you see that's not in Jesus's favor. He does not do what the text says this person is going to do.
Mhm. So, and what is your response to Isaiah 53, for example?
Mythos boy, where's Mythos boy at? Mythos boy's in the chat. I told him right before we got on, I was going to do an
Mhm.
entire episode on Isaiah 53 today, but I changed my mind. Isaiah 53 is not about Jesus. The servant in Isaiah, if you start in Isaiah 40, it tells you the servant is Israel. At one point, the servant is Cyrus, but that whole servant song in Isaiah 40 to I think it's 55, that whole part of Isaiah is about Israel having paid for its own sins. As a matter of fact, Isaiah 41 says, tell Israel she's paid double for her sins. I don't know if is that 40 or 41. I think it's 41. You've paid double for the Lord has made you pay double for your sins, and your time of paying for your sins is over. And by the time you get to Isaiah 53, it doesn't say this person is going to be wounded for our transgressions, wounded for our iniquities. It says this person was, and it's about Israel. It's about either a generation or a remnant of Israel who was punished for the sins of the entire nation. So that passage is none of that is about Jesus. Christians say that. Oh, go ahead.
So let's say, can we pull it up? Can we pull it up right now? If you go to Isaiah 53, verse 9, to respond to what you just said there.
Give me 1 second. 52. Don't I have 53 up here? I gotta pull it up. But go ahead.
Sure. All right. So the second part, the second half of verse 9, it says, "Though he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth." So if you take this argument to say that this is speaking about Israel, my first question to you: do you believe that Israel has done no violence or had done no violence up until this time?
It depends on which iteration of Israel you're talking about, because also in Isaiah you have God saying to the Israelites, they complained to him and they said to God, why are the children being punished for what the parents did? They say it poetically. They say the parents ate the bitter grapes, and the children's teeth are set on edge. And they're complaining to God saying, why are we getting punished for what some other generation did? And God says to them, okay, I hear you. From now on, no longer will the son be punished for the father or the father for the son, even though I did say I visit the sins of the father onto the sons down to the third and fourth generation. He says from now on, only the soul that sins will die. So in the prophetic books, you have Israel saying to God, why are we suffering? We didn't do the bad thing. Some other generation did. And God says, all right, I'm not going to punish you for that anymore. So this, and once again, you can't jump into Isaiah 53, verse 9, and say this. You've got to go back and start in Isaiah 40 and see if what you're saying about Jesus fits into the context of who this servant actually is.
But here's the thing, though. It's setting up this being or this entity. If you're saying this nation, okay, it's setting up this what the person that it's referring to as somebody who has done no violence and no deceit was in his mouth. So if you're saying that there's some point in time where Israel was without violence and without deceit in their mouth, then your argument stands. Cool, we go along with it. However, I don't believe that holds even for a group of people. I don't believe that holds.
Yeah, that's fine. But like I said, the context is probably more supporting what I'm saying than what you're saying. The context has nothing to do with some idea of sinless perfection. The context is, did this person deserve what happened to them? It's not about being sinless. It's about, did this person deserve it? And once again, you can't take 53 by itself in isolation. You've got to take it in, go start from 40, read every chapter and every verse and get to 53 and see if it's not still talking about the same servant it's been talking about since chapter 40. Try that and just see if you still think it's talking about Jesus.
I mean, you could start from where we want. You said the if you were going to have the show about 53, but no matter where you were going to start at, once you get to 53, the thing is, and I think it starts a little bit in 52 at the end of 52. I can't remember, but some people will have Jews read this, and Jewish people be like, oh yeah, what they won't tell them what that is from the Old Testament, and they're like, oh yeah, it's talking about Jesus, right? Nobody's gonna assume this is talking about Israel because it's the verse is so
most
clear.
People have not read all of Isaiah. Many Jews have not read all of Isaiah unless they're practicing Jews.
Okay, so where do you want to? Okay, I don't want to bore your audience or whatever, but do you want to? Can we do a little bit of this? I mean, I'm happy to do it. Like, I don't know if you want to start 52. If you, going forward,
52 is way too late.
52 is way too late. Okay.
These are the servant songs of Isaiah. You have to start at verse 40 to understand what he's talking about in 52 and 53.
Chapter 40.
We're not going to read 13 chapters today on this live. I'm just telling you, go back to chapter 40, start there, realize what the context is, and see if by the time you get to 52 and 53, you think that Jesus is the servant.
Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. I think
let's not agree to disagree. Let's agree to go back and read it, and then we can talk again.
But I'm saying 52 chapter 52. I think it's verse 13. Verse 13 is where you would start about this servant that is being spoken about in this section.
Too late to start there. You've already been talking about a servant since chapter 40.
Then again, we're going to disagree.
So who do you think? So you think after talking about a servant for 11 chapters already, by the time he gets to 52, he's going to switch and talk about some different servant? Well, and not even name the servant. That's what you think?
So my understanding of Messianic prophecies is that though one part, it wouldn't always be evident or clear how it works that particular part is Messianic.
But that's a problem, James, because this verse is written to people at a real time in history who were looking for God to rescue them. James,
but at the same time, but listen to what I'm saying though. But at the same time, they were waiting on the Messiah. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, they were. They were waiting. James, they were waiting for redemption, not necessarily a Messiah. But here's the idea. Here's what I like you to answer what you're about to say. What would a prophecy about Jesus, who's not going to come on the scene for another 500 years, maybe, what would a prophecy about Jesus mean to Isaiah's audience?
Yeah. What would a prophecy about Jesus mean to his audience?
What would a prophecy about somebody who's not going to come for another 500 years mean to those people at that time?
Well, you're asking that question as if God told them the time frame. So in the same way that we're currently Christians are waiting for the return of Christ, we don't know what day or year, what time or hour that is going to be.
You're wrong again. Jesus said we don't know that no one knows the day or time, not even the Son of Man. But he did tell them the generation he was speaking to was not going to pass away until these things came to pass. So we do have a time frame for Jesus's return, and there was a time frame for what Isaiah was saying. As a matter of fact, if you go back to Isaiah 7, where the virgin will be with child, he's telling Ahaz in that passage, here's how you know God's about to deliver Israel, because this virgin right here is going to, or this young woman right here is going to have a child. If that passage was about Jesus, that has no implications or no application for Ahaz. These passages have to mean something for the people at the time.
So here's the thing. all these people, even up until Jesus' time, were waiting on the Messiah. So all those verses, whenever those things were spoken and being written down, they were waiting and anticipating the Messiah's coming. So they were understanding those verses as speaking about somebody coming. And I've even heard, I think Dr. Michael Brown, is that his name? He's talked about how there were even the understanding that it might be two messiahs, because you had this prophecy was saying you had listen, hold on one second, because before you got the revelation of Jesus coming as Messiah, you have both the idea of a priest and a king, and you have kings coming from the line of David, from the line of Jesse, but then priests would be from the line of Levi, and so and it's like you'd have those are coming from, I guess, two different tribes, and so they were like, how is it possible? Because this don't work like this. But Jesus ended up being a priest in a different way, and a king in a different way.
It's always a different way. It's always a second meaning. It's always something because it doesn't pan out the first way. Who is Isaiah 7:14 about? Behold, the young woman will be with child. Who's that verse about?
It was a dual. It looks like it's a dual. How would you say that? Manifestation of answer. Dual fulfillment.
Yeah, it's always a dual fulfillment. It's crazy that it's always a dual. And then the second fulfillment is always something dubious. It's always something dubious. So Isaiah's talking to Ahaz, but you think God slipped in a prophecy about Jesus there, even though he's talking about a woman who's pregnant at that time. And now we get to Isaiah 53, which is the culmination of everything that God's been saying since chapter 40. And you think this isn't about Israel. This is about Jesus. Well, there's a separate meaning here about Jesus.
Yeah, because Jesus says it himself. He says, "You search the scriptures because you think in them you'll find life, but they bear witness of me." He's telling them, "You're searching, but all that you're reading, the law and the prophets, Moses, that's talking about me."
That's a claim. Yeah. Why is his claim believable? Why is his claim believable when he's apparently this is the same guy who told his disciples, this temple that you see standing now, not one stone's going to be standing upon another. And they ask him, when will these things be? And he gives them all these signs of when these things are going to be. And then the culmination is going to be, you're going to see the Son of Man returning in the clouds with the angels in glory. And I tell you the truth, that this generation will not pass away until all these things come to pass. Why would you let that guy who apparently lied about that, why would you let him tell you, oh, guess what? All those Old Testament passages, the law and prophets, they speak about me. Why would you let that guy redefine the Old Testament for you when he apparently is lying about when he's returning?
Because that guy, I don't see anybody else who has spoken good that is better than the good that he's spoken. So, for example, when there are people whose lives are changed from evil and doing and living for themselves or selfishly or licentiously for pleasure and things like that, and because of the words that Jesus spoke, they're able to come out of that. And I think the good that he's spoken is better than any other writing or any other
man. You know what con man stands for, right?
Common?
Common is short. Yeah, con man. You know what that's short for,
con
right?
Man. Con man. No.
Con man is short for confidence man. Somebody who speaks with a lot of confidence and says things that you're like, yo, nobody would just be saying it unless they could back it up. So a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump said to a crowd, I forgot where he was at, some rally. Donald Trump said to the crowd, Trump, I've been better to you than your parents. Wherever your parents are right now, they would agree with me that I've been better to you. And you got a crowd of grown-ups standing around listening to a man who lied 30,000 times, according to the Washington Post, in his first presidency. 30,000 times he lied. Yet he's standing on stage saying to a crowd of people, I've been better to you than your own parents. And no matter where they are, they could be in heaven, they would agree with me. This is how con men talk. So you're saying that because Jesus has good words, he says things that help people turn their lives around, you're going to let him redefine what the entire Old Testament says. You're going to let him tell you, hey, I know that Isaiah was talking to Ahaz about the woman women were washing clothes, about a woman's going to be with child, but that was really about me. And I know this psalm over here says this, but guess what? That was really about me. And I know Isaiah 65 says this, but guess what? That was really about me. You're going to let a con man stand before you and tell you that it was all about him because he's got good words?
It's not good words. It's how how to change your life for the good, or how to live the good life. He's given the words that are the best at it, in our Christian opinion. And so here's what I'm saying. So let's say an atheist could give better instruction for righteous living than Jesus. We would, it would be like crazy, right? We'd be like, oh man, I gotta follow that, because from the Christian perspective, you're trying to follow.
Atheists give better ideas than Jesus all the time.
Listen, hold on one second. Okay, hold on. We're gonna test that. We're gonna test that, what you just said right there. We're gonna test that in a second. Yeah, you're gonna. I lost my train of thought. So go ahead.
Sorry, don't get distracted by
yes,
what I post on the screen. I'm just trying to get people's comments on the screen.
No, it's cool. Go ahead. Tell me what an atheist, and I'll probably remember what I was about to say. Tell me what an atheist has said that is better for the instruction of godly living than Jesus, what the Bible gives you.
So Jesus said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." Right?
Mm-hmm.
An atheist or humanist could come along and say, "Do unto others what they would have done unto them," because you might have things done unto you that your neighbor doesn't want done to them. So the golden rule is really not golden. Like, you shouldn't do to people what you want done to you. You should figure out what they want done to them and then treat them accordingly. That's better than Jesus's golden rule.
Okay, so now here's the thing. So what you just said is you set it up in a way where you have to go off of what you don't know. So if I come across somebody whose donkey is falling in the road or whatever, maybe the person threw their donkey in the road and I wasn't around to see it. Maybe they want their donkey down there, right? But he's saying, what would you want somebody else to do if they found your donkey in the road?
I hear what you're saying, but what you're saying is a good starting point, because I don't know what other people want done to them. So let me see what I want done to me. But wait. But that's not what you said a minute ago. You didn't say Jesus gave us a good starting point that we can improve on. You said he's got better words than anybody else. That's not better than anybody else. That's a good.
And you haven't given me, but you didn't give me something better than what he said, because you're leaving it. You're leaving it in a space where you would never be able to act, because you wouldn't know what somebody else wants. Yeah, you would.
You can find out what the person wants. Hey, do you want help? What do you need right now?
Let me rephrase that. Correct. I'm going to say there's going to be a lot of situations where you can't act because you wouldn't know what the other person wants.
This is why I said the golden rule is a good starting point,
but
it's not an ending point.
I'm not talking about being a good starting point. I'm saying give me something better than what Jesus has given us for godly living. So it's like, I think here's what I'll say.
Do you think that you should pluck out your eye if you have a problem with lust?
Pluck out your eye. No, but here's what he's saying.
No. Wait. Do you think that you should hate your mother and father so that you can follow Jesus?
Yes.
Well, then if you think those are the best words anybody could speak to you, I can't compete with that, because I don't like your definition of best.
So here's what I'm saying. If you're talking about the guides for living, right? How to treat others, how to pursue righteousness. I don't believe. I'll say this.
Do you think you should turn the other cheek if somebody punches you in the jaw?
1 second. I'm gonna answer that question. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to forget this thought.
Gotcha.
So if I look in Islam or Hinduism, if I look in other religions or ways of thinking, I can find parts of what Jesus is saying. I could even try probably very hard and find it in atheism. I could probably try. I'm not saying that they don't have it worded in a certain way where you get something similar. Like you might even have the idea of karma, where that's leading people to try to do things a certain way so that the good karma comes back around to them. I don't know. Like I can try to see, but I think that his way is the clearest and the best. Coming back to the slapping on the cheek. So my position is, if you if you get slapped on the cheek, let's say we take it literally. Let's say we're taking this literally. If somebody slaps you on the cheek and runs away, right? Or if it's not a death situation, they're not trying to kill you. If you can avoid the violence, I would say to avoid the violence. It's not going to be easy.
I'm not asking you. You're not answering my question. Jesus didn't say avoid the violence. He said if somebody hits you on one cheek, turn to them the other cheek. Do you think that that's one of the best things a person could say?
Yes, but I don't think it's specifically talking about violence. Actually, even if it is, yeah, that's the best method. Unless they're trying to continually punch you in the face and trying to kill you or trying to harm you in that way, then of course defend yourself. But I think what he's saying is, if somebody
teach your
does
children
wrong,
to turn the other cheek to somebody who punches them in the face?
I don't have children, but if you're saying, here, let me answer. Let me give it to you like this. The other parts that he's talking about, just to show you that's not just physically. I'm gonna come back to the. Let me come back to the physical. But he's saying if somebody's treating you wrong and they say, they force you to go 2 miles. If they force you to go 1 mile, he says go with them too, right? And that's where we get the saying go the extra mile.
If he's saying give them your cloak also.
You see what I'm saying?
Get naked.
So, right, give them if you have if you have two, give them one. Okay, but yeah, if they're trying to force you, they're trying to do you wrong. Go further than they're going. So yeah, if it's physical, I wouldn't tell my kids to fight. I wouldn't tell my kids to try to fight in any situation. I wouldn't.
So James, I want to see how consistent you are. If somebody were to come along today and have even better words than what Jesus gave, right? They fix the whole golden rule thing and they make it even better. And then they say, hey, guess what? That New Testament, talking about a second return of Jesus, they were really talking about me. Just like Jesus told them on the road to Emmaus, would you follow that person?
If they say he was really talking about me.
Yeah.
If somebody came along and say these verses were not speaking about Jesus, they were talking about me.
Just like Jesus said, all that stuff in the Old Testament, it was talking about me when it was really talking about people back then. He said, now it's talking about me. What if somebody came along and did that to Jesus, like Joseph Smith did with the Book of Mormon?
Okay, so Joseph Smith is a little bit different because Jesus is already here. But sure, let's just take the question that you asked me. So if they're saying Jesus was not the Messiah and they're saying they're the Messiah, that's the question.
No, they're not saying he's not the Messiah. They're just saying all the stuff the New Testament told you to look forward to. They got better words than Jesus. We can live our lives more godly by their words. Would that be enough to make you allow them to reinterpret everything Jesus in the New Testament said, like Jesus did with the Old Testament?
I'm trying to understand your question. No, because here's how it would work. So first of all, if Joseph Smith, for example, that situation, they were not told. The Bible doesn't give us somebody else that we're waiting on after Jesus, right? If the Bible did prophesy that there would be another person, then we would be looking for another person. But because the way God has operated is through prophecy and telling you before he does a thing, and the same way that he prophesied and told you about Jesus before he did the thing, then if there's going to be another,
words can have dual fulfillment though. One fulfillment could be him. The other fulfillment could be this person.
Nobody's waiting on another Messiah. Nobody in Christianity or Judaism is waiting on another person. So for example, there's Jews right now waiting on the Messiah to come. They don't believe Jesus fulfilled it, right? Most Jews, 99% of the Jews that were living in Jesus' time didn't believe him. However, the first Christians were Jewish people, right? It was Jesus' disciples. It was Matthew and all the other, Paul and the other Jews, right? And people in Israel. Those were the first believers that Jesus was the Messiah. It was Jewish people. So there are Jews. It's not wrong for Jews to believe in Jesus. They believe he's the Messiah. The most Jewish thing you can do is to believe in the Messiah. But there's many who did not believe, and of course they were the ones who put him up to be crucified because they didn't believe it was him. But today there's no Christians reading the Bible, reading the scriptures, reading anything that would lead them to believe that there's somebody else that they're waiting on. They already believe that Jesus is the Messiah, and Jesus didn't prophesy other than the Holy Spirit coming. They didn't believe that there was anybody else that they were supposed to be anticipating coming after Jesus. So that's why Islam and Joseph Smith and all that stuff, Mormonism, that's why it's hard.
So somebody comes along with better words than Jesus, and that's not going to be enough to make you let this person reinterpret Jesus's words.
So I said that earlier in the conversation. I said if a Christian were to hear somebody giving a better guide to good and holy living than what the Bible and of course what Jesus instructed to how to live, we would have to take a second and look at that, because we feel that
So
we found the pinnacle.
it would make you move the needle a little bit. It should be inconsistent.
So here's the thing. But listen. So yeah, it would. I don't believe it's possible. But yeah, if you're building up this question, it would have to be God that gave that person. Absolutely. If you gave a better way.
Here's the thing, James. Part of what I was trying to get you to understand about Isaiah is, if you go through Ezekiel and you go through Jeremiah and you go through Isaiah, you see God making very specific promises to Israel about a very Israel-centered redemption and a new covenant that Christians, if you look at Hebrews 8, Christians come along and they reinterpret what the new covenant was supposed to be. And none of the things that God told Israel the new covenant was going to have or be is part of Christianity. But Christians have redefined all the promises that God gave Israel are now reinterpreted in spiritual ways. You understand that, right?
I'd be happy to hear what these examples are. What do you?
Let's go to one. Let's go to one. Let's go to one right now. Can we turn to Isaiah 65?
And okay, Isaiah 65.
Matter of fact, let's not start there. I like doing it the other way. Let's go to. I'm trying to think. How should I do this? Let's go to Revelation first. Let's do it that way.
Well, how you go? Okay, I mean that's a. All right, I'm thinking it's
because I want to show you what the Christians say. I want to show you what the Christians say. Then I want to show you what the Old Testament said, and just see, sure. What do you do with that?
What chapter? What? Right. What chapter? What verse?
Chapter 21.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
What verse?
I'm reading from the NET version. If you're okay with that. Says
I don't even know.
At the top of the New English Translation.
New English Translation. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Verse 1, chapter 21 says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and earth had ceased to exist, and the sea existed no more. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God, made ready like a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, the residence of God is among human beings, or among men. He will live among them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death will not exist anymore, or mourning, or crying, or pain, or the former things. For the former things have ceased to exist.'" You're looking forward to that, I'm sure, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, yeah.
Okay. Now, let's go back and just see what the biblical Israelites were looking forward to. We're going to go to Isaiah 65.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're okay with it, I'm going to start kind of in the middle of the chapter because, let me start somewhere towards the beginning. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to jump around a little bit. And if you want me to read the whole chapter, we can. But I just want to jump around just to kind of show you some things.
Up to you. That's all good.
Let me know. Are you at Isaiah 65?
Oh yeah, I'm there.
Okay. So this is not what we're looking for, but I just want to read it because I think it helps to build the case that I'm making. Top of the chapter says, "I made myself available to those who did not ask for me. I appeared to those who did not look for me." Who do you think is speaking there?
I don't know. I'm not.
Okay.
I don't.
This is the word of the Lord to Isaiah to give to Israel. So Isaiah is speaking as God, is sort of like he's speaking for God. God is the one saying, "I made myself available to those who did not ask for me. I appeared to those who did not look for me. I said, here I am, to a nation that did not invoke my name." So this is God kind of laying out his case against Israel, right? Now, are you aware that when you get to the book of Romans, Paul reinterprets this and he makes the people who did not look for him is no longer Israel in that passage. In Romans, I think it's Romans 10, somewhere between 9 and 10. Paul changes who the people who did not look for God is. And you know what Paul makes that people?
Mm.
Are you aware?
Who does he make it?
The Gentiles. So no longer Israel. Paul makes it the Gentiles, the gospel going to the Gentiles. So the New Testament is full of.
But one second, hold on.
Okay.
My bad. So I'm gonna stop you there. So, because of course we didn't start from, like you said, 64 and all these things. Let me see. To a nation who is not my own. Give me as a measure. I'm going back into 64 and then I'm pulling back up to 65.
All good.
To a nation that did not call on my name. Okay. I mean, well, I'm in the NIV, but I mean, it's whatever. Yeah. I'd have to. I have to read. I have to go back in 64.
Okay,
I have to go
fine.
back in 64. Yeah.
That's just something to check out when you get a chance. But what I'm suggesting is the New Testament is filled of the authors taking scriptures from the Hebrew Bible that Christians call the Old Testament now, and reapplying them in ways that they did not mean when you find them in the Hebrew Bible. To Paul, the people that did not ask for God is Gentiles, where here it tells you clearly in verse 2, I spread my hands out all day long to my rebellious people who live in a way that was morally unacceptable. So that's verse 2 of Isaiah 65. This is talking about Israel, not Gentiles, right? But that's not really what we're looking for. So we're going to skip down. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We're going to skip down to verse 17. It's going to sound familiar, but what I'd like you to do is stop me when it stops sounding familiar. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 17 of Isaiah 65.
Right.
For look, I am ready to create new heavens and new earth. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
The former ones will not be remembered. That sound familiar?
Absolutely.
No one will think about them anymore, but be happy and rejoice forevermore over what I am about to create. For look, I am ready to create Jerusalem to be a source of joy and her people to be a source of happiness. Now let's watch this. Verse 19, Jerusalem will bring me joy and my people will bring me happiness. The sound of weeping and cries of sorrow will never be heard again. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Right? We saw that in Revelation 21. But then look what happens here. Never again will one of her infants live just a few days. That was part of God's curse on Israel, right? Your kids are going to be dying. You're going to be cannibalizing your own children. Verse 20, never again will one of her infants live just a few days or an old man die before his time. Indeed, no one will die before the age of 100. Anyone who fails to reach the age of 100 will be considered cursed. Now, this is God saying, I'm going to do a new thing. I'm going to create a new heavens and a new earth. What's different about this passage than what we read in Revelation?
I don't understand. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not following. I'm not tracking as to what you're trying to show.
I'll just spell it out. In the new heaven and new earth in Revelation, death is no more. There's going to be no more dying there. But the author of Revelation is actually riffing off of this promise from Isaiah, where God says, I'm going to make a new heaven and a new earth, but it had nothing to do with some ethereal, spiritual, you're never going to die again. This is God's promise to Israel. I'm going to put you back in your land. And once I put you back in your land, you're not going to have to worry about kids dying young anymore. You're not going to worry about people dying before a certain age. You're going to actually live long lives in the land that I'm going to bring once I redeem you. You're still going to be dying because this is not the kind of salvation that the New Testament is talking about. This is a very earthbound salvation for the earthbound people of God. That's what the promises in the book of Isaiah are about. When you get to the New Testament, what you're dealing with is Jews who for centuries have been wondering, when is God going to do the thing he promised for us? We thought it was going to happen when Cyrus came to deliver us from Babylon. Persia, we thought God was going to use Persia. We thought it was going to happen when God used Assyria. We thought it was going to happen when God used Greece. It didn't. We thought it was going to happen when God used Rome. All these nations stay ruling over us, and every time we keep telling ourselves, now the promise is going to be fulfilled. Now, so by the time you get to the New Testament, what happens is the Christians get a little slick, and they say, "Damn, you know what? We could actually make these prophecies get fulfilled if we spiritualize them instead of looking for God to do them materially and physically in the here and now." So by the time you get the Revelation, guess what? No more dying. It's the new heaven and the new earth, but this is the new heaven and the new earth 2.0. But the 1.0 never happened. God never did the thing that we just read in Isaiah 65. So all I'm saying by going here is every time the New Testament quotes something from the Hebrew Bible, they change it to make it look more spiritual, more Jesus-y, and it's nothing like what it was supposed to be in the original context. I don't know if you see that, but I think if you spend time going through Isaiah, going through Jeremiah, looking at what the new covenant was supposed to be in Jeremiah versus what the new covenant is in Christian speak in Hebrews 8, it's not the same thing. The Christians are doing something completely unethical with the Hebrew Bible. And if you call yourself part of the new covenant, you're actually promise jacking the ancient Israelites. You're stepping in saying, you know what? God ain't doing that thing with y'all no more. He's going to do it. And this is what Paul is saying through Romans 9-11, even though he tries to say, don't worry, all Israel is still going to be saved some kind of way. Even though he thought that was going to happen in his day. He thought God was going to find a way to save all of Israel in his day. And it never happened.
What was the word you used? Jacking what? We were fulfillment
promise jacking or prophecy jacking.
Promise jacking. Yeah. Okay. So here's what I'll say. First, with how the texts differ and why the revelation was written, or why God gave the revelation this way, and the similarities or differences between the passage in Isaiah. I can't respond to that right now. I couldn't tell you exactly why that is.
But you see the difference. That's all I'm asking. You see it.
Of course. I mean, the prophecies that are repeated that come from Old Testament, and you see parts of them appear in the New Testament. There's either a dual fulfillment or there's a slight variation. You're like, okay, well, this one is brought in here in this way. We've seen that before. So this isn't in that sense new. This particular verse about highlighting the death and that they would not living to 100 and then they do die, and then it's kind of talking about death after a perfected. I guess you would say you're considering this a perfected state. I can understand what you're saying there, but yeah, it definitely isn't mentioning death in the revelation that was given in the book of Revelation. So
no, it is mentioning death. It's just saying it won't be anymore. No one's going to die.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yes. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Death is not going to be a thing in that sense. So yeah, I hear you, but no, I don't see that as an issue for me. And I haven't looked at that and compared those two to understand, okay, what is the response to that? I don't have it. So I can't.
But it's not just those two. It happens over and over again. Like I said, look at the new covenant in Jeremiah and Ezekiel, then look at the new covenant in Hebrews 8 and see if you don't see like, man, y'all are doing something different here.
Mm-hmm. But when you say, I hear you. But what I would say is when you talk about promise jacking, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. The first Christians were Jewish people. Do you agree with me on that?
That's what that's
okay. Let me rephrase that question. According to the Bible, the first Christians were Jewish people.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So this is now there are Jewish people today that believe in Jesus. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that? There's been even though it's a small percentage, there has been a small percentage of Jews that accept Jesus as the Messiah. Right. So so when you say promise jacking, I'm like, well, I don't agree with that. We're grafted in as Gentiles, as non-Jewish people. We're grafted into the promise. We understand that. And the Old Testament tells you that he says that, to the nations that he, the message would be preached, that he would be known by the nations. We are the nations, Gentiles. We understand that. So no, it's not a projecting anything from anybody. This is what the prophecies were saying. But yes,
that's what the New Testament authors are saying. The prophecies are saying. Go back and read the prophecies, and they're not saying that.
Okay. So is it your understanding? And I also have questions for you at some point if I have time.
Yep.
But are you saying that the Old Testament doesn't say that God's quote unquote salvation, or God, the relationship with God would not be extended to other nations outside of Israel?
No, in the Old Testament, the salvation comes because God redeems Israel, and He makes all the other nations bow down and follow behind Israel as their war captives, and Israel runs the planet. That's how the other nations get blessed through most of the prophecies you see. God tells them that Assyria and Egypt and all these other nations are going to be following behind them in their train as captives. That's the salvation of the nations. That's the light going out to the Gentiles. What Paul does in Romans 9-11, where he talks about the people who were not my people being called by my name and all that kind of stuff. Paul is talking about Gentiles when those passages are about Jews. Matter of fact, in Isaiah, I forget which chapter it is, where God says to Israel through Isaiah, go to them and say to them, not my people. And then at the end of the chapter it says, now go to them and say, my people. So God is talking to Israel, and He calls Israel not my people. Then He calls Israel my people. Paul takes that and changes it and says, the not my people are the Gentiles, because they're not God's people, right? And God's going to make the Gentiles who are not God's people, God's people. That's not what Isaiah is saying. He's lying.
Well, I don't agree. I don't agree with there, but I hear you.
So what would you make of it if Isaiah says, go call Israel not my people, and then at the end of the chapter he says, okay, now I'm done judging them, go to them and call them my people. And then Paul comes and says, when Isaiah says those who are not my people, I'm going to call my people, and Paul says that's talking about the Gentiles. What do you make of that?
That the scripture is used in ways that that initially you would look at it and you say, like I said earlier, that's interesting that verse is used there that way. You say, that's interesting.
It's just interesting.
Right? It's just interesting. But my question to you was, are there verses in the Old Testament that you're saying that there are no verses in the Old Testament where God is showing that He would extend that the nations would be in a relationship with Him, that He would be in a relationship with the nations? You're saying that they would just be following Israel, or are you saying that there would be
the relationship is through Israel? God's going to he's going to bless the nations through Israel, but He's doing that by making Israel rule over the nations. There is no sense in which everybody's on even playing field with God, and they're all God's people equally. No, God exalts Israel. You're going to be the head and not the tail. You're going to be the borrower and not the lender. All of that is about God putting Israel back in their land and exalting them. And through them, the nations being blessed because they're under Israel's righteous rule. That's the way they saw themselves.
I mean, I don't want to sit here and belabor this point. I feel like there would be a lot of verses to go through to understand what you mean, or what the verses say. I don't want to do that. I wasn't thinking about going that direction. But I think there are separate different places where it's showing that God would be doing that with the other nations. That's
okay. But you said you had some questions for me. Let me read a couple super chats, because I think some of these super chats were for you. And then you can ask whatever questions you have for me. I don't mind the time, because there aren't like a bunch of I'm sorry. There has been somebody. Where'd he go? Is he still there? Mr. Morpheus was online, but he's a former Christian, and I want to dedicate most of the time here to theists when they call. So let me just see. So we got Mythos Boy, thanks for the super chat, says this conversation about living chemistry is way more about psychology than it is about abiotic chemistry. All right, I like that. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
I disagree. Say I don't see how it's psychology at all.
Okay. And then Steph, thank you for the $5 super chat. Steph says, James, once you go down the rabbit holes, you'll see why the Bible is too confusing to be God's clear word. What do you think about that, James? Once you go down the rabbit hole, once you start looking at some of these things and comparing it, she says, you'll see why the Bible is too confusing. I said, is that Stefan? Is that Steph L? I'm not sure if that's Stefan or short for Stephanie, but
I'd be interested to know how many books of the Bible she's read, how far she's gone, or him or her.
This might not be she. This might be Stefan, who was on Life After Faith last Thursday. I'm not sure. Let's just say Steph in case.
Yes, I'd be interested to know how far he. I'd be interested to know how far he or she has gone. But no, I haven't. I think I've gone through the Bible twice myself, but I don't see it as confusing at all. But I do understand people who try to point out contradictions or criticisms to say this doesn't make sense. I understand, but what I found is that there's typically an answer for all of that, and I don't find it confusing at all.
Okay. And many of us were in the same boat. We read the Bible our entire lives. We believed it. We preached it. We lived it. We loved it. It's not until you get some critical distance that, like, I remember after it had been a couple of years of not reading the Bible because I was afraid to see another contradiction in it. So I stopped reading it from 2015 to about 2021. I stopped reading the Bible on my own. I was still going to church, but I couldn't read it. I told God, if I see another contradiction or another thing that's dubious, I don't know what's going to happen. So I was still going to church, still trying to believe, but I stayed away from the Bible to keep my faith. But what that did was that gave me critical distance because I had stopped doing all of the apologetic stuff that I was doing to smooth over the inconsistencies. So that by the time I got back to the Bible to read it, I started in Genesis, and all this stuff that I had never seen before was jumping out at me. And I literally said this to myself. I said, who put that in the Bible? I'm like, oh no, that was always there. I used to do things to minimize how crazy that looked. But with that critical distance, I saw it in a whole new light. That was 2021 after 6 years of keeping my distance from the Bible. So I'm not saying that you should try it. I'm just saying, I think this is what Steph is saying in this comment. Like, once you go through down that rabbit hole, if you get some critical distance, if you allow yourself to maybe just say, let me just say, what if? Like, what if there's a different way to look at this? It can change things, but I appreciate your response.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sad to hear that, though. I'll say that, but it is what it is at this point, right?
Yeah. And another super chat from Truer Gold, but no, True. So for those who don't know who Truer Gold is, you know that this is our star supporter, Thurgood in the house. Thank you, Thurgood, for the $99 super chat. I thought it was a comment attached to it, but it's just support. Love you, bro.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, did you send me the pic of you here in the studio so I can post it? My phone's about to die, so maybe not. No, I'm talking to Truer Gold. But okay, so you said you had some questions for me. There's nobody calling. I don't know if it's too long for you. Okay. I don't know. I wasn't looking if there's any red flags. I don't think I saw any red flags in the comments. So if you got questions for me.
Yeah. So I got a couple, as fast as we answer them, I'll go to the next one. But okay, well, let's start minimal. Let's start way at the bottom and see how fast we get through that. You would accept that we have come from non-living matter on its own, that something happened, chemicals evolved into life.
I'm not so willing to call something non-living because I don't know if we have a solid, updated definition of what it means to be alive, especially in light of all the things that we're finding out about life at the micro, at the quantum level. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to trust past current definitions of what it means to be alive. I think our understanding of what that means for something to be alive, we probably need to have an open-ended conversation about that right now and hold our definitions loosely. And because of that, the idea of life coming from non-life, until we actually figure out what that demarcation is, I don't even know if that's a meaningful distinction.
So okay, so for example, let's say I have a human being and then they die, right? So they get hit by a car, whatever, head gets cut off, whatever, and they die.
Mhm.
Do you believe that that is, let's say after a week of decomposition, do you believe that that is life, that living matter?
I don't know if you want to go down this rabbit hole, bro. I just popped the gummy a little while ago. We can get real twisted right now. So to say they died, another question that we actually have to figure out is what are you referring to when you say they? When I say I, when I say you? Because you said a minute ago when we first got on, you agree with me. You said that we are an amalgamation of molecules and chemicals.
Yeah.
And not just molecules and chemicals, but you would not even be alive without the microbiome, the universe of bacteria that is in your gut, or the mitochondria that is in your DNA. Other living things living inside of the living things inside of you help make you you. So the presentation of you that I'm talking to, the executive that is in charge of all the other molecules and parasites and bacteria, and the executive you, once that goes away, does that mean that you die when all these other things that are inside of you are still living within you and your body is still processing things? I don't know enough to talk about that.
All right. But I mean, that is my question. No problem. Then I'll go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe a rock is alive?
I don't know. Under the definitions that you were pulling up a minute ago when you Googled and just got the 4 basic things, under that definition, probably not. But I don't know enough about chemistry and radiation and what's happening at certain levels to be able to say it's not alive in any way that I'm willing to give my life for. Like I'm not going to practice altruism with a rock. I might practice altruism, exactly. You know what I mean? Like
for a rock, yeah. Okay, perfect. So then now, okay, let's say the water molecule, let's say H2O, we were taught that in school. We all know that science, two hydrogen molecules, atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So you have a water molecule. Do you believe a water molecule is alive? 2 hydrogen atoms, 1 oxygen atom.
I think colloquially, I don't know if there's enough chemistry going on between the H2O to say that's life. It's definitely reaction, but how do we know that life is not just a more complex reaction? So I'm not necessarily willing to make that.
So okay, do you? Sure. So I guess I'm gonna go to the next question, but I think it's almost kind of like if you say a brick is not a house, but a house has bricks. It's that idea that these are the building blocks of life. So, but once, the arrangement of them results in this unique thing called life. Yeah. And so where you have this process that begins where, dang, this thing is reproducing itself. Dang, this thing is metabolizing water through its body, or food or meat or whatever, vegetables through its body. And it's like, and so that's where it's converting. Metabolism would be like, it's converting this thing to use it inside the body. That whole process is that thing called life. But yeah, okay. So at least you said rock. You wouldn't consider rock to be life. I would say that if you believe that at one point the Earth was a molten hot rock that was floating through space, and then it's cooled for some period of time, and then somehow we got water on here, and then we got all these other things on here. I think you would. Yeah, at some point you have to admit that there was a time when there was no living matter. But you're saying that you don't know how to define it. But I think the idea of abiogenesis, that scientists are trying to figure out the best theory or understanding of how abiogenesis would have occurred, is because they have come to the conclusion that there was no life at one point. So then when you get the word abiogenesis, you're saying life from non-life. You're getting life from non-life, and they're trying to figure out the best proposal for how.
I get that. I get that. Yeah, but even many of them, because they're having such a hard, and you might say, oh, then they should just believe in God then. But because they're having such a hard time trying to figure out where you cross over from abio to bio, many of them are beginning to say maybe we just don't know what it means for something to be alive.
No. They're not saying they don't know when it crosses over. They're trying to figure out the mechanism for how it would have occurred on its own.
No, what I'm saying is because they're having such a hard time figuring that out, some of them are beginning to propose maybe the reason why we can't figure out how it goes from A to bio is because maybe what we think is abio is really not abio. Maybe life, maybe there's gradations of life at that level that we're calling abio that actually is bio. It's just not bio in the way that we would have recognized it in the past.
But that's what I'm saying is
go ahead.
I disagree. I don't think that's what they're saying. When I say I disagree, I'm saying I don't think that's what they're saying.
Somebody on Facebook sent me a paper. Maybe it was you. We don't talk on Facebook, do we?
No, we do not.
Somebody on Facebook, we were having this discussion on Facebook, and they sent me a paper. They were arguing for your position, but they sent me a paper with these researchers, abiogenesis researchers, discussing how difficult it is to figure out how you got biogenesis from from non-life. And in that very paper, one of the suppositions is maybe we don't know what it actually means for something to be alive. And that's why we're having a hard time, because we keep talking about abiogenesis. Maybe what we're calling abio is not abio. This is one of the suppositions in the actual paper. So that's why that's what I mean when I say some of the people in that space are starting to suppose that maybe that's how you square this circle is by rethinking what you've been calling abio.
Oh. All right, I'll leave that one there, no problem. But thank you for engaging that. The next question: Do you believe that it's wrong for an animal to kill another animal, to eat it? Animals. I'm just talking about animals. Do you believe it's wrong, more like morally wrong?
So I'm very subjective with my morality. I don't have objective morality. I think it's probably wrong to the animal being eaten. I don't have a dog in the fight. No pun intended.
Okay. So
for another human to eat me, I would think that was wrong. Or for a human to eat another human, I would think that's wrong. But once again, that's a very it's a very subjective morality of which I'm
hold on 1 second. Well, you're saying, okay, great. So let's jump right to that then. So you're saying for you, you're saying it is wrong for a human to eat another human, to kill and eat another human.
To me, because I think all morality is subjective, and because I'm a human, to me, that is wrong.
Okay, but if somebody else had another subjective understanding, it's okay for them to have that understanding.
It's okay for them to have that. I would try to persuade them, or I would imagine there are certain things. If you've got a common constitution, you're probably going to have common subjective ideas on morality. Therefore, I don't think that there's anybody who is a human who thinks it's okay to be eaten by humans. And they might say they hold that view based on objective moralities, but I would argue that that's a very subjective moral position and an understandable one, no matter how subjective it might be.
So for you, what is the reason for you that it is not okay to kill another human being or to kill and eat another human being? What, for you, from your atheistic perspective, why is that the case?
Mm-hmm. We've called it the first law of nature, which is the law of self-preservation. Living things tend to want to stay alive, and the more recognizable or the more conscious a living thing is, it's able to express its desire to stay alive. So a plant can't necessarily yell, a flower can't yell at you, "Don't pick me up." But trees do release all kinds of chemicals to signal distress or to warn each other. So if we were able to hear the trees protest or the flowers protest against being picked, I think that would be immoral to pick it once we understood it's got sensations like I have. I think that I could say that that's morally wrong once I understand it's got feelings like me, which is why I hate eating meat. And I like to pretend that the meat that I eat just came from a meat tree and not from an animal. Because once I realize it's sentient, I think I'm doing something wrong when I eat these animals. I feel that.
Okay, perfect. I mean, we're gonna come to the meat. Okay, we're gonna come to that meat in a second. Wouldn't it, in that, and from your worldview, then would it not be better to assume that the plant doesn't want to, or that the other entity or being, just assume that they don't want to be hurt or killed or eaten?
Say that one more time. I got lost in what you were saying, thinking through what you said.
Wouldn't it be better to assume that the other entity or being doesn't want to be eaten or killed? Wouldn't it be just better to assume, instead of waiting for them to tell you, or to say that if they had sentience, if the plant could tell you that it didn't want to be eaten, wouldn't it be better to just assume that it didn't want to be killed and eaten?
If I didn't know that it was sentient?
In any case.
No, I don't think so. If I didn't know that it was sentient, I don't think that it would be better to assume that. Especially if my hunger pains are getting the better of me and there's nothing else around. I don't think it would be safe to assume I'm hungry, but it doesn't want to be eaten, so I'm not going to eat that strawberry.
So if there's a baby, a human baby born in a coma or something, should we get, and it can't express that it doesn't want to be harmed or hurt or whatever, is it?
No, I wouldn't compare that to a strawberry that I've never seen express thoughts before, but I know humans have thoughts even if they can't express them.
So you would say that based on
safer to assume that baby's got similar nerve endings and neurons and senses pain and whatever, and maybe there's a hope for it. Who knows? Medically, we could actually revive. Like, there's all kind of things I would think about a baby in a coma that I wouldn't think about a strawberry.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'll take that. So now that brings us to the meat of the animals. And so, and do you, and you're saying you're feeling convicted because you've seen animals who, let's say, they've been in pain or suffering. When you know that they've been killed, you can assume that they didn't want that, and so you feel conflicted about eating the meat, though you have the option to eat the plants that you have not seen exhibit that response. So you're acting, what you're saying is that you're acting not in accordance with your convictions. And I would ask you, why is that?
Because I have different convictions. I mean, because of my constitution, one of the things that, several of the things that our kind of being want to do, all living things that we know that things that are alive. I think you mentioned this a minute ago. I think you mentioned something about when you were talking about the 4 things. I think one of them was metabolizing, right? But metabolizing is you getting nutrients from outside sources and turning it into energy. So the idea of you turning nutrients into energy, you don't just get that energy and use it. You get that energy and you try to conserve it. And that's just part of our DNA, is the conservation of energy. I'm only saying that to get to this point. The idea of only eating plants, I don't know that that's going to get me the level of energy that I need. And I think living a life where I'm only eating plants is going to cost me more energy when I live in a world where animals are as food is just more prevalent. And so I'm thinking about, how am I going to get energy? And am I going to spend more energy than I need to? And if I can conserve energy by just, hey, you know what? They got the meat already. I might as well go ahead and do this. So I'm only saying that to say, it's not just the drive of, man, I don't want to harm animals. It's also the drive of, I need energy and I want to conserve energy. And I'm the product of all of these different drives.
And why do you feel bad when you eat meat? You said that earlier. What do you feel bad about?
I feel bad about having seen what happens at slaughterhouses, number one. And also, I think it was part of my deconstruction and my deconversion, going through the idea of wanting to be intellectually honest and consistent. If I saw somebody eating a dog, I would feel some kind of way. But if somebody in India saw what we did to cows, they would feel some kind of way. And so it's like, well, wait, why am I mad that somebody has dog for dinner, but I'm not mad that somebody has cow for dinner? That's not consistent. And so in me wanting to be consistent in my worldview, I'm having to think about, well, then if it's wrong to do one, either it's not wrong to do either, or both of them are wrong. And I got to just live in the reality that I do something that I think is wrong. I think it's, I think it's not, I think it's harmful what we do to animals, and they feel pain, and we know they feel pain.
But at the same time, like, I'm trying to, because you're being honest. You're being honest. And that's good. And I don't think it's possible to be an atheist and be consistent unless you're vegetarian. So this conversation, we've already gotten to, where we need to be. But I'm trying to, what you're saying, I feel like there's, how can I put it? You're saying, why would you should be mad? You want to feel mad about one, but I'm like, why are you using the word feel mad about seeing somebody eat a dog? Why? I don't know. I feel like,
did I say feel mad? I don't know if I said that, but maybe I did.
Yeah, you said you'd be mad if why would you feel mad if you saw somebody eat a dog, but you wouldn't feel mad if you saw somebody eat a cow? So I'm trying to, I know what you mean, but it feels like the dog and the cow are both, they're both sentient. I'm trying to understand that delineation right there, because I've never even gotten to that point with the atheist. The delineation between dog and cow, I've never gotten that deep. So I'm trying to think of what questions to even ask about that. So okay, so yeah, I mean with the dog, okay, we get it. They're pet. We see them as pets in America, and our system of thinking. All right, I'll see that. But yeah, I mean you've admitted it. You've conceded that it's it's a sentient being. You shouldn't be eating it. I think what I would then ask you is that if we all have a common ancestor, if animals, if the cow, the human, we both have a common ancestor from your point of view, you would say that the separation between cow and man, or human and animal, is arbitrary. Would you agree that it is an arbitrary distinction if we all have a common ancestor?
What do you mean by arbitrary? Like that it's not a real distinction?
Yeah. So so that you're just picking a place to draw the line. Not that there is a real line there. You're picking a place to draw the line. I'll give you an example. So let's say there is a group of cannibals. They draw the line and say we don't eat from our own tribe. We don't eat people from our own tribe, but we eat everything else. We can eat humans, cows, chickens, but as long as it's from our own family, we don't eat that. Somebody else might draw it out a bit further and say we will eat other races, but we won't eat our own race. And then somebody else might, they push it out a bit further and they say we don't eat anything outside of our own species, right? And then maybe there's somebody else that goes up and they say outside of our own phylum.
I get you. Yeah, I get you. I get you. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's arbitrary, because arbitrary seems to suggest that there's no rhyme or reason to it. I would say that it's based on self-interest. Like people in India don't eat cows because they see them as divine, and they have a self-interest in venerating cows because they think it's going to go better for them. People in America don't eat dogs because they see dogs as pets, and they see them as things that have personalities, and maybe even see a little bit of themselves. And so
that's arbitrary. That's an arbitrary line.
Well, once again, I think maybe I'm wrong. Arbitrary is like there's no rhyme or reason. What I'm talking about is not no rhyme or reason. The reason why I think the species that, or the humans, cannibalistic tribe that says we can eat other humans but not our own tribe, once that tribe says that, they opened the door for someone to do the same thing to them. And so that's not in their best interest. I don't think you're going to do that, because you realize once you do that, or if you do that, you're not thinking far enough in advance about, once you pass that kind of law, you've just made yourself somebody else's dinner. You'd be best to pass a law that says, okay, we're going to eat everything else except humans, because that's where your self-interest is going to be able to flourish the most. So I don't think that's arbitrary. I think it's self-interested, which is different than an arbitrary distinction.
Okay, so all right, let's pull it back all the way to the first life. The first life. Now, this first life is before plant, it's before animal. It would be this common ancestor that it's some organism, it's something. I don't know, maybe it's closer to plant. I don't know. But
The first life is probably just a multicellular, like I mean, smaller than a virus. Like the first life is not going to be plant. It's going to just be
single-celled something, right?
Well, yeah, single celled at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So what I'm saying is now you and the banana, me, and from your perspective, we all of us and the banana and the tree and the chicken, we're all from that first thing, right? So we're all okay. Evolution goes on billions of years, okay, millions of years. Now you have all these different things, these life forms on the planet. What I'm saying is we're all cousins in your worldview. We're all cousins. So
nope, not cousins. We're not even cousins with chimpanzees, and they're our closest relatives in the ape family. We're not cousins with any of them.
We're okay. There you go. We're relatives. There you go. We're okay. We're all relatives. We're all relatives, right?
Well, once again, that's different. We're I was going to say we're related, but we're not relatives. But that's not.
We're
that's
related.
A distinction without a difference.
Cool. Let's do it. We're related. We're related. Yeah. we don't live in the same house. We don't speak the language, but we're related, right? So that's what I'm saying. So the line that is being drawn is to say we're drawing it as at species, because you know when you talk about kingdom, phylum, blah 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 blah, there's those levels to it, and then we get down to the lowest in this conversation would be species. You could go even lower, like I said, to tribe or race or brother, like just brother and sister or whatever. You could go even further down, but we're drawing that line as species. But like you said, we're still related, and it's evolution. It's just been this gradual process of evolution to slowly separate us. Now, there's been people that try to be objective about it, to say, okay, if they had sentience, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna treat other animals that have sentience. Okay, maybe, right? Or maybe they're gonna say thinking creatures, and so they try to define humans in a certain way so that they can justify eating the animals. But it's always very hard, because you can always find this situation where you would end up in situations where humans are defined in the same way that the animal is defined. Like I was talking about a baby in a coma. If somebody doesn't have the ability to think, or if somebody doesn't have sentience as a human being, you end up situations where you would then classify them the same way that you're classifying that thing you're okay eating. And so but you're being consistent, but I'm just saying, I'm highlighting that it's arbitrary. Whatever your line you're picking, it is arbitrary. And I think that is the reason that you feel bad, is because the line is arbitrary.
Hold on. If you decide to wear, you got more than one pair of shoes in your house, right?
Yeah.
If you decide to wear a pair of shoes that match your shirt versus a pair of shoes that don't, is that an arbitrary choice?
It depends on what we're talking about. I'm talking about morally.
No. We're talking about making a choice, making a distinction.
No, it's not. It's not arbitrary. It wouldn't necessarily be arbitrary. If I have shoes for work, and I have shoes for, and if I have shoes for,
not shoes for, I'm not talking about shoes for, because I see what you're saying about work shoes, dress. No, I'm talking about shoes for. You got a pair of Air Force Ones, 2 colors in the shoes. One of them matches your shirt. Then you got another pair of Air Force Ones, 2 colors, just like the other pair, but no color in that shoe matches your shirt. And you decide to go with the ones that got a color in it that match your shirt. Is that an arbitrary choice? Because you could have chosen either shoe.
It's not arbitrary. No, that's not arbitrary.
In the same way that's not arbitrary, me saying humans should not eat other humans is not an arbitrary thing, because hey, we could have said the same thing about humans about goats as we said about humans. Humans should not eat goats. Why choose humans? That's arbitrary. No, there's a reason why you made the decision not to eat humans, just like there's a reason why you made the decision not to wear the shoes that don't match your shirt. That's not arbitrary.
Okay. So say it again. Why don't you choose to? Why do you feel it would be wrong to kill any humans? Say it again. And I'll see if it's arbitrary
out of self-interest, if we say it's okay to have humans for dinner and we're humans, we've just made ourselves dinner.
There was. That's not how you defined it earlier.
That's exactly what I said earlier.
Well, I think you went a bit further, and you talked about the feeling or pain. You went into something about pain. Am I wrong about that?
So, I mean, I did make a statement about the idea that something can feel pain, but I also apply that to the flower.
Right. And so what I'm saying is, you understand that the animal can feel pain,
Mm-hmm.
and that it suffers.
Right. Mm-hmm.
However, you unless you would say it's wrong to eat animals, but you do it anyway. Is that because if that's what you're saying, then we're good.
I said that. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
You said you feel bad about it. I guess that is saying it's wrong. But so would
no,
you say
I went as far as to say I went as far as to say it's wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So sure. That's what I'm.
Here's one of the issues that you're having is a lot of times theists are used to, not that you tried to gotcha me, but you're used to people feeling like, oh, if I don't cop to objective morality, then I'm opening the door for all kinds of immoral things. And I don't care about that. I think we understand what morality is subjectively, and that gets us by enough for us to not kill each other. In most cases.
Yeah, I understand that point, but I'm just saying that idea of the arbitrary line, it still stands, based on the atheistic perspective, that we all descended from the same common ancestor. The line is being drawn at species, and I understand your reasoning. But I think the fact that you can still eat the meat, I feel like it says something. Like you know that there is an objective difference. That's what I'm trying to get at. So from the atheist perspective, you have to draw the line arbitrarily, but I believe that there is in fact a distinction. I do believe in fact we are different. I do believe that. So I mean, now we'll get into the.
How do you feel about? Well, I was going to say, how do you feel about in Genesis, where God says to Noah in them after the flood, just like I gave you all the green plants for food, I now give you all the animals for food. Do you feel like that's a good command from God?
Do I feel like it's a good command from God?
Knowing that animals have families and family relationships and feel pain, and we're finding out how much like us these animals are today, but an all-knowing God would have known that way back then. Do you think it was a good command for a God who knows that these animals have pain, feel pain, and have relationships, for God to say, I give you all of them for food? Do you think that's a good command?
Have you ever had a hamburger?
Yeah.
Have you ever had a juicy steak? Of course it's good. Yes.
So hold on. You didn't hear anything I just said?
I did.
How good they taste outweighs the fact that they've got family relations and feel pain. The fact that they taste good, F all that.
Yeah. So here's how it goes. So wow. God being the creator of the universe, he can tell you if you have dominion or give you dominion or take away that. So yes, for the first 1,500 or so years, we would understand that humans were. Hold on 1 second. Give me 1 second.
No. I'm not going to allow you to make that kind of apology for they taste good, so fuck their feelings. What if God gave another higher species the right to come eat us because they're higher than we are, and even though we feel pain and we got relationships, God tells another species, nah, fuck their feelings. You can eat them. They're not like angels.
Yeah, he did that. He did that in the Bible. So when
Israel, another species a right to eat us,
not to eat them, but killing. So
that's really not my question. My question is, in the same way that you're willing to say F the feelings of the cow,
okay,
because they taste good. What if God gave angels the right to eat us, and they said F our feelings because we taste good? Would that be a good thing for God to do?
Yeah, in response to sin, I think he sent animals to kill or eat people. I believe he's done stuff like that. Yeah, he's already done. I'm telling you, he's done it. So here's what I'm saying. So for the first 1,500 years, yes, we were vegetarian. God is the creator. he created man on a different day than he created humans. God breathed life into man, and he gave us dominion over all the earth.
He didn't create man on a different day than he made animals. He made the land animals and man on the same day.
I'm sorry, he created them separately. I'm sorry, you're correct. He created them separately. Now, that's what I wanted to say. He created them separately in a different act of creation. He created them in a separate act of creation directly from the dirt. Our understanding is that he created Adam and Eve directly from the dirt. And so we are not the same as them from the biblical worldview. We're not the same.
And we're not the same as angels either. So if God tells the angels they taste good, just like I gave you whatever angels eat, angels food, whatever, manna, just like I gave you whatever for food, I now give you humans for food.
Yeah, if
that would be a good command from God.
Of course. If for whatever, like I just told you, he's commanded the killing of human beings.
You know why I'm a humanist? You know why I'm a humanist? Because my views would keep us alive. Your views would say it's good for God to have us be made into food.
But your views may not keep us alive. It's not your views. You have your views, and those animals are still dying, and you're still eating them.
No, my views keep us from becoming. My views keep humans from becoming dinner. Your views says if God says it's okay, it's a good command.
But your view says killing and eating animals is not okay. Your view says that, right? But you do it.
Yeah, I'm okay with saying I do wrong things.
So don't say that your view would keep X, Y, or Z for happening, because you're doing things that your view says don't do.
Well, what I'm saying is my view protects humans. That's what I said. That's why I'm a humanist, because my view protects humans. And I said this already. I said self-interest is part of the process.
Well, self-interest is going to be limited. You're of course, if everybody agrees to limit it to species or whatever, if we're talking, right, sure.
Well, you don't even care enough about the species to add to tell God, like, yo, you tripping right now. You gave us nerve endings so that we could feel the pain of being chewed on by angels, and you're going to call that good because God commanded it?
Yes, if God were to command whatever God would command. So let me answer this question, because you asked it. I haven't gotten a chance to respond to it. So animals are given to us, okay, not because they sinned. God made that decision after the flood, and he said, you now have these for food. So that's just his prerogative. His prerogative as the creator, he gives that. So if you're gonna say yes, if he created another higher being, if we were on this planet with another higher being, and God gave that other higher thing the ability to kill and eat us, then that's God doing it. That's just God's prerogative to do it. You have me there. Yes, if God did it to us, but the thing is, he created us in his image. God created us in his image. We don't.
But a little lower than the angels, which means they're more in his image.
The Bible says that angels yearn to know certain things that we know.
No, to look into these matters. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we wouldn't. So here's what I actually want to say. We don't believe that angels have the free will, unless of course you can talk about Lucifer, you can talk about things that happened before. But we understand angels to be something where they're just fulfilling commands or things like that, but that we are something a bit different in how we're created. But sure, yes. But here's what I'm saying. Whatever you want to say, yes, I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna go with you on it. If you say that if God commanded angels and he had put them on the same planet as us, and he commanded them to do whatever to us, that would be God's prerogative, and he's punished man already.
You're answering a different question, James. I never asked you whether it would be God's prerogative or whether God had the right or anything. I asked you, would it be good? You didn't answer that.
Yeah.
Everything you said.
Yes. Whatever God would command would be good.
So James, what if all of life, right? We talked about what life is. What if all of life is God just using triumph, tragedy, and adversity, patience, faith, and all the love, loss? What if all of life is God just seasoning our souls to feed his angels? Would that be good?
If whatever God's plan is, whatever it would be good. But if you were to tell me that,
ladies and gentlemen, I give you religion.
So if you're telling me God's giving us this whole life, to end up throwing everybody into some horrible torment. If that's what you're setting up, to say, I mean, I'm gonna just go and say, all right, it's good, because whatever we understand from the biblical perspective, we understand God to be good in the sense like there's nothing better than that. What you're explaining is something that I would never see. I wouldn't understand God to do. But
so James,
all I know
when
is
God
that God
says,
is good.
when I give you this land, go in, kill all the young men with the sword, and take all the young women who have not young. It's actually the word's not women. It's all the little girls. It's all the little girls who have not known a man. Is that a good command?
Yes. Should I expound?
Nope, no need. I don't want to get my YouTube channel demonetized by you expounding on the glorious goodness of God's war raping. So,
but I wouldn't have to go into that word to explain why, though. I wouldn't have to use that word.
I'm not interested. If you think that's good, that's enough for me, bro. Like that's so. Wow.
Well, I mean, yeah. If you don't want to hear the response,
no, sir. But I do appreciate the call. I've enjoyed talking with you.
It was good.
Thurgood sent another man. Thurgood, yo, you got me over here blushing. Shout out to Where's Waldo? That was real dope because Where's Waldo super chatted Thurgood's other message that was above his super chat, so that I can make sure to go back and pay that. Brady, do you see the alley-oop your boy Where's Waldo tossed up? That's community, man. Love it. So I put the comment on the screen before. James, you might have a response to this, but this was the comment that went with first super chat.
Okay, let me.
It says, I'm gonna sow a seed of faith and believe that Brother James is going to re-listen to this podcast and know exactly the times he lied for Jesus. All it takes is one step, James. Seek truth, my brother. What do you say, bro? James?
Nope, absolutely not. It's no lies. But I understand everybody. If this podcast, if this stream is people who have come away from the faith or who don't believe that Jesus is what the Bible says he is, I'm sad to hear that. But I believe God can do anything. I believe that you can all come back, and that's all I can say. Oh, you know what? Can I ask you one question before I hop off? I don't know if you got time for one more question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for you, what would you say? How has your life improved? This is a question I have for atheists. How do you feel that you live a more righteous life, being an atheist than when you were, in Christianity?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe atheism allows you to do some things that Christianity doesn't allow you to do, though, quote unquote, morally?
I mean, definitely. I mean, the whole idea of sin or somebody going to judge my thoughts or whatever, or me having to outsource whatever good I accomplish. Like once all that goes out the window, you realize, oh, wait, if I'm going to do something nice, it's not going to be because God's watching, or I want to demonstrate to this person God's love, or reflect God's image to them, or they bear God's image, so I'm going to do this for them, not for them, but because they look like God. Whatever reasons you had as a Christian, if you do something nice as an atheist, you can have selfish reasons for doing it. You could do it because you want them to maybe repay you in the future, or you want to look good or whatever. But a lot of times as an atheist, you do things for other people for two reasons. One, you realize there's no God to rely on. And two, you put yourself in that person's shoes. I've helped so many more people as an atheist than when I was a Christian. I've given so much because I don't think there's anybody in heaven that's going to help. And I don't think I would want to be in that person's position. And if I can help, I want to.
And you don't think Christianity, so you're saying Christianity, you felt limited that ability to do that. So for example, if you took a specific situation, so let's say you were walking, I don't know if it's like you were walking down the street and you saw somebody who needed something, or like, what do you mean when you say that? But you're saying Christianity, you felt that was harder, there was less reason to do
If
that
I
because
saw
you could
somebody who
pray?
needed something, whenever I saw that person, I would think, what does God want in this situation? Does God want me to say something to that person? If I give if I give them something, am I just buying an audience to give them the gospel? Am I doing this because, like, there's no self motivation to do it? All of my motivation is.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
But I was gonna say, what does the word say to do in those situations?
I don't know. There's probably a million things it says to do. I could think of all kinds of different passages.
Generally, you would say to help a person in need, right? So what I'm only highlighting
generally.
I
don't know about generally. I mean, the closest I come is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But you also have to couple that with let your good works, let your light shine before men, that men might see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. So even if I do good for the other person because I would want good done to me, I'm still coupling that with the fact that if I do this good thing, the end result is going to be my Father in heaven is getting glorified. That's my chief motivation.
Right, but like what we were talking about at the beginning of the conversation, when we say if somebody saw a donkey, if you saw your neighbor's donkey and had fallen down, you'd help it. Like, you as an atheist, you don't have to. I don't see the word tells you what to do in that situation. I don't know that as an atheist you have more reason to help that donkey. I'm trying to understand what you mean by that, to help that donkey for that person, or to help that person.
I have internal motivation instead of external motivation. The Bible is external motivation. God's watching. God made you for this, whatever. As a unbeliever, whatever motivation I have to help a person's got to come from in here. I'm not loving you with the love of Jesus. If I love you, it's my love. It's here. It's starting from here, not from there. And then I'm just a conduit of it.
Okay. I understand. Okay. 1 John 3:17, really quick. It says, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? So I'm saying the word tells you, but what you're telling me, you're not. All I'm hearing you is that you're doing as good as what the word says. You're trying to say that you're doing as good as the word says without being Christian.
Well, part of ethics, even in Christian ethics, it's not just the act, it's the motivation for the act that counts for the goodness. Like, if I push you out of the way of a car because I want this girl over there to see me do it, did I do a good thing for you? Yeah, but at the same time, I didn't do a good thing for you. I did it for me, and my motivation for doing it kind of downgrades how good we would, if we were rating goodness, we would downgrade that because the motivation wasn't really a good motivation.
And if you're saying there's ethical frameworks, if you're saying that comes into play, I'll have to give you that. But I see it as a good thing to push that person out of the way. That's all I can say. Yeah. Like, it's the same as hurting. Like, it's hurting someone for whatever reason the person makes up in their brain, right? Doing a bad thing for whatever reason the person makes in their brain. You could say, man, I had to punch him in the face for, the way he was looking at me, I had to punch him in the face or something. It's like, you can man can justify bad actions, but it's not. There's no good reason to do something bad.
Yeah. Hey, I'm sorry.
I don't know if I'm making sense.
I lost you, but it may not be you. It may be the gummies kicking in. No James, problem. I'm not sure when he posted. So it's 8:17. So 10 minutes ago, Amias, thanks for the super chat. Amias said he just admitted his morality is arbitrary. I think he's saying I think Amias, I don't know if that's talking to me or you. Who admitted it? I'm sorry. That was 10
Yeah,
minutes ago.
yeah. She's
Now I
probably
haven't been
saying I
looking at the
admitted
chat.
it. She's probably saying I admitted it. All I'm gonna say is if God is the one who says what we do. So if he says something, that's the objective standard for Christians is God. So it's not arbitrary. It's objective from that perspective for Christians. Mm.
Well, it's objective for you, but you'd have to admit it's not objective totally, right? Because if God can say angels eat humans and that become good, that's subjective. It's not objective morality. The objective morality is mind independent or stance independent.
So,
but if your morality
so,
comes from God, your morality is subjective. It's just subjective to whatever God's whims are.
So what we would say is if there's an action that is being taken that it is actually either good or bad. There's one entity that knows the answer to the question, and he would never do the bad. And so like the question would be, is it good for me? Like, is it good for me to, if there's a question like, is it okay to do X? Is it okay to stab this person right now? Like God knows in this situation the answer to the question. We all on this planet, we guess and we try to do our best to know the right answer, and we try to be consistent and all these things. But God knows the answer to, in this situation, what was the right or wrong thing to do. And so we believe there's an answer to that question. That's what we say when we say objective. We think God has the actual answer that only he knows the right answer to the question. And so it's objective.
But you know the Euthyphro dilemma. When you say God knows the right answer to the question, why is it right? Is it right because God knows it, or does God know right things? Like, what makes it right? His knowledge of it, or his determination that it should be the right thing?
It's somewhere in the middle where it's him. He is good. So when we say the word good, like 1 John 4, it says God is love. Like when we say God is good, it's like anything that we do, anything that you do that is good, it only because God exists. From our perspective, from a Christian perspective, the thing that is called good, you can't do a good thing because without God existing. God is goodness. He's good.
Because God is good, because God exists and is good, ancient Israelite soldiers could go and possess people's land, tell a girl whose family they just killed, you're my wife now, take her home against whatever protest she might put up, and give her 30 days to mourn her family, and then go in and have sex with her. Because God is, and God is good, that is now good, is what you're saying.
Yes. So because listen, but let me answer this time. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I'm saying, yeah.
Okay. So Old Testament, you have sin, and New Testament, you have sin. But the first killing of, hear me out now. This is 3 steps. God kills everybody with the flood because of sin. The payment of sin is death. That's first. When you get to the law, he gives you instances where you can either kill the person if they have committed a sin, or an animal would die in place of them, or da-da-da-da-da. But typically, the ultimate payment for sin is death. So in the law, it's like God's like, I'm not going to be striking people down here everywhere, but I'm giving you the rule. Here's how it's going to happen. Now, when he tells them to go conquer those lands, those nations were in sin. They were in sin. And so the judgment came.
Nope. Sorry, not going to allow that.
But
you're not going to tell me that you're not going to tell me or my audience that because this nation was in sin, God said it was okay to go and basically war rape their women.
But you're not letting me land the point. But you're going to love it. I'm not going to say
you're
going
to crash land. You're going to crash land. And nope.
No. But
God, that's
but
God's
okay, let me crash.
judgment.
Okay, let me crash. Is it cool?
Go ahead.
Okay. So what then, because the third part of it is, okay, Jesus comes, he is, he dies for all sins, and then we don't have to do that anymore. Now, so what happens is, before all sins are paid for, God is showing you, here's the effect of sin. This is how crazy this is. When sin isn't paid for, you got to do sacrifices every year. When a person sins in a household, here's how everybody else is affected. Blah 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 blah. Sin is not dealt with. This is how far-reaching sin is. When you see how David, when he slept with Bathsheba and killed her husband, and then they have a baby, and then he's like, I'm striking the child, and the baby dies, right? And so God's like, I'm killing you. I'm not going to kill you, but your baby's going to die. When before Jesus Christ, sin is it's such a wild thing, the far-reaching effects of it. And so once Jesus dies, so if you were to tell me like something like that were to happen after Jesus has paid for all sin, and what happens to those young women and the babies that are commanded to be killing, the sin that
crashed. You've crashed and the plane is on fire. And the red flags are popping up in the chat. So I'm gonna let you go on that note, James. I appreciate the call, or most of the call, until we started getting to this rape apology.
I appreciate it. All right, let me say some nice words. Let me say some nice words to you before I go. Yeah, man, thank you for letting me on here, and thank you for having an engaging conversation. You didn't disrespect me. You didn't, in any way consider me, there's little jabs and jokes and all that. That's cool. But I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate it. And for everybody in the chat, it's all good, all respect, all love. May God bless all of you. And I would just call you Ichapod. Is that what people call you?
Ichabod, but they call me Be Good. Be Good.
All right, be good, man. Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks for calling, man.
All right, thanks.
The things you end up having to justify when you want to let a book rule your worldview. An ancient book, a book where people thought that there was a solid dome in the sky and windows had to be opened in the dome for water to come down. When you get your ethics, your understanding of biology, or your cosmology, or your politics from a source like that, that's where you end up going. I'm fighting to sneeze. Sorry. Hey, y'all, thanks for rocking with Ichabod. Like I said, this Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to put it in the Patreon. We'll be going through Anthony Flews' There Is a God. Try to get at least chapters 1 and 2 in your bag. And I'll be putting that in the Patreon. We'll probably hop on Zoom. I'll send y'all a Zoom link and we'll get on there. But shout out to the Patreon supporters. Thank you for everybody who made the chat and kept the conversation going. Thank you for all the super chats. Love you guys. I'll be back on tomorrow around 5 p.m. Eastern. And I think I got a Life After Faith coming up this week, but I'm not sure. But I'll keep y'all posted. Till the next. Praise Yahweh. Did I say Yahweh? I meant Nahweh. It's the gummies. It's the edibles. Nah. All right, y'all. I'm out. Peace. Exposed. Wildness. All right, I really am out this time. Peace.